Thank you for joining us on our journey here to preserve the history of mixed martial arts. When I wanted to take on this project, I needed help. I brought in one of my favorite matchmakers, Miguel Iturrate, and the MMA detective, Mike Davis. So to do this, we've been able to preserve history. Welcome and enjoy. Okay, welcome back. Another fantastic episode here, Lights Out Podcast. As you guys can see, Miguel, Mike, or the regulars, somebody else, we like to go into some deep dives. We like to do some really in-depth interviews here. And right now we have an old school guy from even before my time, but one of the great managers and fight promoters this sport has ever seen, the great Monte Cox. Monte, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
It's amazing.
I'm gonna let Miguel start off. Go ahead, Miguel. What do you got?
Sorry, Chris. I'm all excited too. It's like we started the 50 Fight Club and we started doing interviews with guys that have more than 50 fights, and Monty's probably responsible for half those guys. You know what I mean? So yeah, this guy is the most easily the most prolific early MMA manager and promoter, matchmaker. He wore every single hat. He was somebody that I got to work with early, and it was always, the type of business where we talked and everything we said always kind of, happened. So, maybe we didn't take it any further or anything like that. But I always loved working with Monty, and his guys always came and kicked my guy's ass usually. I'm talking about a few times where I got him, though. Mike?
So Monty, all right, so I do a ton of research on people, and it's because me, Miguel, and Chris were mentally ill in regards to finding out little Star Warsy nerdy stuff. So I'm gonna excuse my behavior before I even start because it's gonna get ugly. All right, so you and Pat Miletich have known each other for a long time,
right?
And you have given credit to Pat in the past in regards to convincing you to do the Quad Cities Ultimate, which was your first few events.
Yeah, he bullied me. He wouldn't let me say no. So
it sounds to me like you guys knew each other before this and had a really good relationship. How do you know Pat Miletich?
Well, actually, we barely did know each other. I was the editor of the Quad City Times, the newspaper in Davenport, Iowa. And when you're the editor, you get lots of calls and things that come across your desk. And one day I got a call from it came into the switchboard. They wanted to talk to someone in sports, and I got it. And the guy says, hey, he goes, we got a local guy that's going to Chicago, and he's going to fight in this cage with no weight limits, no time limit, no rules. And I'm like, come on, I had never heard of this. And I was promoting boxing then, a little bit of my free time. And I go, this is silly. And so I go, give me this guy's number. So I call him up and he's like, hey, he wouldn't even let me talk. He goes, before you do anything, come down to my gym. Let me show you what we're doing, so you don't just write some kind of hatchet job on us. So I said, all right. So I go down to the gym. And this is late 95. And I watched their wrestling. Okay, I know wrestling. I live in Iowa, and then they're boxing, and I did a little boxing. I get it. I mean, I like boxing's great. And then they started showing me the jiu-jitsu, and I had never seen it. And honestly, I always say it reminded me like it was some kind of voodoo. It was just off the chart weird. I mean, all of a sudden it's like, and so they choked me. They arm barred me. I got to go through the whole gamut. They were showing me. I was in good shape then, but I mean, they're just showing me everything. And he goes, what do you think of that afterwards? And I go, man, you're blowing my mind. I go, he goes, imagine two guys who train in all this stuff going against each other in a cage. And I'm like, dude, you had me. I'm hooked. So I go, I'm not going to write anything. I'm going to go with you to Chicago, and I'm going to watch you compete. Then I'll write a story. And so I went to Chicago, and it's at St. Andrew's Gym that holds maybe 2,000, and they got easily 3,000 in there. It's unbelievable. You're shoulder to shoulder. I can't even get through to my seat. And I run into a guy that I had just met through boxing about a month earlier. He owned a building there across from Wrigley Field where you could go up on the roof and watch the game. And he invited my wife and I, and we went down and watched the game and stuff. And I just happened to run into him. And I'm like, what are you doing here? He goes, my sensei, he's going to crush these guys. He's a 4-time bare knuckle champ out of Japan. And he's just, going to kill everybody. And I'm looking at the thing. I go, well, shit, my guy's fighting him first round. And he goes, oh, bad news for your guy. Whereas my guy's Pat Miletich, And so I'm like, God damn it. So I go and I go to sit down. I'm thinking this isn't going to be good. My friend just told me that what was that guy's name? Yasunori Matsumoto. Yeah, Matsumoto. And he's a killer. So they're the first fight and the best fight of the night by far. At one point, Pat gets him in an armbar and the guy just won't tap. And he snaps it. And I'd never seen an arm break like that. I mean, he just snapped it. And Yatsumoto pulled his arm out and started beating him with his arm flopping around, hitting him with it. And I was like, oh my God, this is insane. And then Pat he had to choke him. It's the only way to stop the guy. He had to choke him. And he wins, and then he just rolls through everybody else. And I was hooked, absolutely hooked on the sport. And I came back and I told my wife, I go, I'm just a big sports fan, but if this thing ever gets mainstream, I mean, people will go crazy. They've never seen anything like it. And so we come back, I write the story on Pat. And even before we get back, Pat nudges you, he taps you when he talks, he tapping my shoulder. So you got to do a show. He goes, you're a promoter, you got to do a show back there. I go, dude, I don't know anything about this no holds barred stuff. And he say, you're a promoter, ain't you? You're a promoter. You can do it. And he goes, trust me, you can do it. He like bullies you, Yeah. I'm going to say no to a guy that just threw, 3 guys around like rag dolls, All right, I'll do the show. Jesus. and I said, if I'm going to do it, I got to do it big. So I go, there's a brand new venue across the river in Illinois. It holds 9,000, 10,000. If we're going to do it, we got to play this off like it's a monster. And he goes, Monty, I'll sell 1,000 tickets. Now, all you guys that have promoted, how many people told you they could sell 1,000 tickets a
200.
Day?
Yeah.
I've
had exactly one who made it.
Pat sold 4,000 tickets. I've never had anything like it. I started him off with 200 down at his gym. I get a call the next day, they're gone. I'm like, shut up. And he goes, nope, they're gone. He goes, I need 1,000. I go, easy. I'll bring you 500. And then I figure I'll never hear from him again. Before the week's out, he's like, dude, I got a line outside my door. Will you just please bring me the tickets?
Oh my God.
I didn't like it. And so we do 8,000 people, but with half of them through Pat. And I started learning about Pat that everyone in town knew them because chances are at some point he punched you. I mean, he fought everybody in town, everyone, I'd ask him, how good is Pat as a fighter? And they go, I don't know. He's really good in the street. And he specializes in like bars. I don't in a ring. I don't know about that, but in bars, no one beats him.
World champ.
Yeah. They're telling me about a time someone sucker punched him and knocked his 2 front teeth out. And he chased him for like half a mile down an alley and damn near killed him. And so when we found out everyone found out he was fighting, half the people came hoping he'd lose. And the other half came because they just wanted to see it. Everyone hears about Pat, but how often do you get to actually see it? So anyway, that was my first show, Quad City Ultimate. And I've never had a bigger show other than the Yaranoka show that I helped put together in Japan.
Oh, wow.
But
so when did you know to expand? Like it's Extreme Challenge.
I had a pretty good idea when I was pulling up to the arena on that first show. I'm crossing the bridge into Illinois and I can't get into Illinois. And I'm like, this bridge I can't believe these people. No one moves. No one does anything. And as I get halfway, I can see it going down and around and all pulling into my arena. And I told my wife, I go, holy shit. I go, they're all, I go, I'm doing this to myself. It's my show. And just couldn't believe the amount of people. Never seen anything like it. And I remember at about 2/3 of the way through the show, the box office manager comes down with paperwork and he shows it to me. And I look at it and there's these, crazy numbers. And I think a lot of times, you guys know this, they'll show you the paperwork, but at the bottom it has the potential. If you sell out, here's what you got. This is how many, and there's your total. and he never do that. And I go, yeah, I know it's possible. How did we actually do? He goes, you son of a bitch. He goes, those are the numbers. And I had gotten a great deal because I told him I might draw 500 people because I didn't know what we would draw. I go 500 to 1,000 people. And so I got a deal. I got the whole arena for $2,500 and everything. and out of 8,000 tickets, I had 4 comps. I don't like comps. I don't make any money on comps. I'm the anti-comp guy, So but that's when I knew. It was exactly like I told my wife. I go, if people see this, they're going to lose their mind at how ridiculous and exciting and back and forth. And, it's just a crazy, crazy sport. And I said, I need to make money at this fast because, in a year from now, this thing's history. There's no way this is going to keep going because, the headbutts and stuff like that. There was one show that was just, a guy won on like 25 consecutive headbutts.
Jesus.
Just busted the guy's face. And I'm like, nah, that's not that. I don't like that. Too much. People aren't going to go for that. Too bloody. And then once people got together and said, we need some rules. Then I started believing, this thing could catch on. I go, I don't think I'm crazy. I think if people see it, they're going to get behind it. And so I knew right away, the first show, 8,000 people, my thoughts of continuing my boxing shows drawing 700, it just didn't excite me anymore.
So when was your first show outside of the Quad Cities then?
I did Quad City 1 on January 20th. I did Quad City 2 months later. Then I did a small show in Des Moines a couple months after that. And then I did Extreme Challenge 1 at Veterans Auditorium in Des Moines, 10,000, 12,000 seat venue. I only drew 3,500 people. And I said, I'm never coming back to this shithole. 3,500, I was embarrassed. I'd done 8,000 and 6,000. And now I'm in Detroit. I'd walk to Des Moines for 3,500 people.
Yeah.
I was going to say 35 is pretty good.
Yeah, but not then, know. And the biggest difference then and now is there weren't a lot of shows going on. And so I found myself positioned in a really good place in Iowa that if I did a show in Des Moines, I'm really close to Minneapolis, Kansas City, St. Louis, Chicago, all these cities. And back then they didn't say who's fighting. They just said, hey, the cage fights are coming. And people would come from all over because they, every one of my commercials said, you've seen it on pay-per-view, now see it live. I started every one like that. Come see it live. And people came from all over.
Right. So, one of my favorite fighters that you've managed was Jen Pulver. And in my opinion, him and BJ Penn was a historic fight. The first time that they fought, not the second time. What were your thoughts going into that fight? Because Jen's was just such a heavy underdog and people were just really discounting him based on how dominant BJ was in that weight class.
Well, I think this happens quite often. People didn't take into consideration the anger and the determination and everything that Jen's had from a horrible upbringing. And Pat Miletich had the same thing. They underestimate him because those guys both were so angry at life and angry at what they'd gone through, with Pat having people, his brother killed, his dad dying early, all that kind of stuff, other brother in prison. He was just an angry person, and he could turn that on in the cage, great. Same thing with Jen's, we all know the story. His dad put a shotgun in his mouth, and he was always told he was never going to make it. Well, he just decided early, I'm going to make it. I'm going to be something. And when he got mad, that guy was a little monster, And so he was going through people that, no one thought he would beat Uno. And then, Uno was a superstar then. He was one time, And then Jens comes over and does a pretty, not that difficult. And then Hallman was, here's a guy that's beaten, Matt Hughes twice. And Jens hated Hallman because they grew up in Washington together. I think Jens won, I want to say 3 state titles and then in wrestling. And then Hallman came up when Jens left and won 1 or 2, and they just didn't like each other. And, when Jens would get all fired up, he's got a split personality. He's got like 6 guys in that head. And we'd be driving down the road and Hughes is in the passenger side and Jens is in back. And I got the call and said, we had told the UFC, we'll fight anyone. We don't want to fight Hallman, because Jen says, I don't want Hallman to get any recognition off of me, even losing to me. I don't want it to happen. So typical UFC, they call and say, hey, we're going to have you fight Hallman. And like, there's no one else in the world, right?
Yeah.
And Jens just goes, you could just see just so frustrated. And he's back there and he starts saying, I ain't fighting him. There's no way, they can't make me fight him. He goes, I'll take the belt. I'll throw it in the garbage. Fuck that. I ain't doing it. I don't have to do it. And he goes, but I'll knock him out. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to knock him out and I'm going to spit on him. I'm going to knock him out, but I ain't fighting him. There's no way I'm going to fight him. And Matt and I are looking at each other and Matt starts going, cuckoo, cuckoo. We did a lot of cuckoos for Jens. And Jens just Jens in the back seat, all 4 of them just going at each other, trying to figure out, how it was going to happen. But, and the thing that had made us, Jen signed a contract with the UFC before there was even a 55 division. So he's fighting at 55, but they sign in at 70 and they just agreed to make 55. And they didn't think it was going to go anywhere. They didn't expect, it was very low pay because they didn't expect this weight class was going anywhere. They didn't expect a guy like Jens to come and run the weight class. And so he signed a contract that was pretty crappy. And so I'm looking at the contract, and every time Uno, Hallman, Penn, he's making less than they're making. He's the champ. Jesus. And I kept going back to Dana and saying, Dana, this is back when Dana and I got along for about a month. And he goes, Monty, he goes, if we don't follow the contracts, why even have contracts? He goes, if just tell him to keep winning, and when he does, we'll take care of him. We love Jens. Well, yeah, they love BJ and the thought of BJ being their champ. But so he beats BJ, and Jens was like, I'll fight. He goes, bring on BJ. He goes, I don't care. He goes, there's no one can beat me at this weight. And come to find out, he's really a 35er. Fighting 55, to be honest. And so he beats BJ, and I say, Jens, you got a copy of that contract you signed? And so I get it, and I'm going through it, and I'm like, because Jens goes, that's it, that's my last fight. And I'm going through, I'm like, yeah, there's an option. If they give us in writing within 30 days, they get to get him for 13-13. BJ just made 20-20. And so I told Jens, I go, don't say anything. Don't say a word. When they tell you, do you want to fight? Say, yes, I am. I'm fired up. And we waited. I waited almost 40 days until they wanted to buy the plane tickets they brought out Dean Thomas, who had beaten Jens. It's not like they were giving Jens any breaks, right? They're giving him the toughest guys in the world they can find. And so they give Dean Thomas in London. And I said, yep. And I finally go, yeah. I go, Joe, we're all about it, but we need to get that new contract. And he goes, no, we're going to do the option. And I go, that thing, we never got any notice. I think that's over with. And he goes, I'll call you back. Phone rings 5 minutes later. You motherfucker, you'll never work in this town again. You did blah, blah. And I go, Dana, how you doing? You know, and he's, you knew this, you knew how this was going to go, blah, blah. And I go, Dana, if we don't follow the contracts, why even have contracts?
He liked that, didn't he?
Yeah, he liked that. Not as much as me hanging up on him. I guess that's his pet peeve. I had to go to Matt Hume because Matt Hume was the most hated guy by Dana at that time. And I go, give me some insight. And he goes, if you're getting mad at him, hang up on him. He hates that. So I, hung up on him. And he calls me back and I'm like, dude, I go, look, we're not trying to hold you for ransom. I said, all we really want is the same money that BJ just got. Give us 20 and 20 and go from there. We're at 13 and 13. We're asking for a lousy 7-7 raise, for crying out loud. There's no way. I'm not going to do it. You'll never work. I'm going to do this. Well, that was it. And I go, well, we already had an offer from UFO in Japan for 50 and 50. And at that time, Japan was still Japan. And as I'm looking at it, Japan's been Japan for a while and it's going to be big. Yeah. UFC, we don't know if it's going to last another week at that point. They just got back on pay-per-view, but I mean, they still were losing money hand over fist. So, they kept trying to contact Jens, without me, and Jens will tell you, they kept saying it's loyalty. You got to understand loyalty. And he goes, I'm loyal to Monte. He goes, that's the guy that took me out of nothing, brought me into his home. He goes, that's where I'm loyal. And so they would not deal with me. So we went to Japan. So and they've never forgiven him. I mean, they brought him back and all that stuff. But if they'd have forgiven him, he'd be in the Hall of Fame. Okay, well,
so you've obviously just said a lot. And Monte, it's unfortunate that you've said so much because I've got a lot of questions for you, but I have more now. Was that the London fight where Lee Murray and Tito Ortiz had their infamous street battle?
I don't remember because I didn't go. And in those times, there were very few UFCs I didn't go to. I went to like 60 in a row. I had 3 to 5 people in every show, sometimes 8. I had 8 in one. So Jesus. I was always going. Okay. But I did not go to that one. And so I don't know.
Okay. So we've seen Dana almost transform. Like we've seen him make premature announcements about an HBO deal. Obviously you're recalling conversations where he was biting your head off. The Dana today is much different than the Dana that first entered onto the scene. So the Dana that entered on the scene was a very scorched the earth type business policy type guy. How do you guys begin to rebuild the bridge for Jens to get some camera work and some commentary time? Because I was shocked at seeing him in there.
Everybody has talked to Dana. I haven't. I don't even know if he'd take my call. Although I did. They had 4 champs. They had 5 champs at most of the time. I had 4 of the 5, and we still didn't talk. Did not talk.
Well, how did you guys do your contracts?
It was smart on Dana's part because he and I couldn't get together for very long. We passed each other in the hallway. That was long enough.
He sent you to Joe Silva. You just basically dealt with Joe, I guess.
Yeah, and that was where I said he was smart. He needed me. I can't tell you how many times he told Joe, because Joe told me. Dana just told me again, Monte gets nobody else in the UFC, not one of his guys, nobody. And Joe would say, well, good luck finding people because he's got them all. So, I don't know where are we coming up with these other people? So and then he would never enforce it.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. Let me ask you, so that's the Jen situation. Now, it wasn't another, what do you want to call it? Like another fighting point with the UFC, Matt Hughes, because Matt got to the point where, when Matt came in, was doing the cowboy entrances and stuff, Matt was becoming a star. You know what I mean?
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think, and Dana had busted out with, you know, the little locker room bonuses and stuff like that. And I mean, hey, you know, that's one thing I can tell you for 25 years. Monty said it the first time I met him, and he just said it today. Hey, honor contracts, right? You're entitled to some of the income, right? So Dana chipped away at that point, got into Matt's head a little bit. Why don't you tell your end of the story?
Well, the first time I heard about the locker room bonuses, I was like stunned that they're even there. And then I had Rich Franklin at the time, and I went up to Rich, and I just said, "Hey, I got to ask you something." I said, "Have you ever gotten one of those locker room bonuses?" And Rich goes, "Oh my God." He goes, "I am so happy you asked." He goes, "Yes, I did." He goes, "I got $100,000 check, and I will write you a $20,000 check tomorrow." And I go, "Well," he goes, "Dana came up to me, and he had an envelope, and he goes, I got a check for $100,000 in here. I don't want this going to Monty." He goes, "This is for you, directly to you. If you're going to pay Monty, I'm going to keep it." And Rich goes, "No, I'll take it." And then he said the deal was I couldn't tell him, he couldn't tell me about it. And so he waited, hoping that I would say something so that he could do it, because our deal was all fight revenue was a percentage. I did that, and then I also, like, unlike other managers, if I went to Japan, which I did a lot, if they got a yellow card, I got a yellow card. You know, if they lost money, I lost money. When Tim Sylvia got caught for steroids and got fined and money deducted, I got money deducted. We're a team, you know, and that's how I wanted it. I didn't ever want it to be someone would win a $50,000 bonus and the fighter's going, "Yeah," and then me or someone else is like, "Fuck, that didn't help me any." You know, I wanted it to be a team thing. And Tim Bosch was the best at that. Tim would call me and he goes, "Monty, we got another $50,000 bonus. Woo!" He goes, 40 for you, or 10 for you, and 40 for me. And I'm like, "Well, awesome. I mean, how can it be better than that?" You know, and that's how it was set up. And then Matt was the first one that didn't give me a locker room the bonus, because his were big.
If I could just break it up just a pinch, the rumor was with Hughes that, you know, he was maybe the first guy to make that jump from, you know, making $30K or so to a fight to making $300K, and now 20% becomes different, and now the wheels started turning, and you know, Dana had a big chip. Is that part of it?
I never knew what the fight. Obviously Dana and Matt were tight. I was not in that circle. I didn't know, and so Matt didn't tell me everything. And I don't have an issue with Matt, even though he did some things that in the end that kind of, cost me a lot of money and stuff, and was hurtful. But when you look at the long run, without Matt Hughes, I don't think I become the manager and person that I became, because people look at Matt, who's managing him, and the management got to be fairly easy when everyone's just calling you. I wasn't out and going to alleys in Bangkok looking for fighters. I'm going, no to you. What's your record? No to you. But everyone wanted to be a part. They thought it was get with Monty and you automatically get in the UFC. But that wasn't really the case. It was like, get with Monty, you have to go to Miletich and survive. If you survive, chances are you're going to get in the UFC, because if you're not UFC level, you're not going to make it very long at Pats.
Well, you mentioned you got into another one of your guys, a former UFC champion, that also there's the old story that maybe you can clean up. And that's Rich Franklin, and he was on like a 7, like they signed a long-term deal. Yep. Where like he outgrew it really fast. And then all of a sudden it's like he's fighting for 14, 16 kind of jumps. Take us through that, because I know that you're trying to, that's part of why Rich and why afterwards there's that, basically love between you and Rich. Rich came up to you and said, "Hey, here's your 20.
Yeah. Oh, we're still
it's because
tight.
of what you guys. It's because of what you guys have been through. Tell us all that.
Okay. What happened was at that time they didn't sign contracts for the UFC. They'd say, hey, what's Rich doing? You want to? And he went in and fought. He made 5-5, and he was now like 11, 12-0, and we were supposed to fight again in December. And then Joe called me and he goes, look, we got 9 fights for December. The only one I don't have is for Rich. He went to Dana and Dana said, just do 8 and we'll do Rich in the new year. Well, I go, Joe, what do you mean? I mean, I had talked Rich into quitting his teaching job and going full time because I said, there's no part-time champs. And we had a really famous meeting between us out in the parking lot of a Dave and Buster's where we had a heart-to-heart over whether I thought he could make it or not. And he quit his job and caught a lot of flack from his wife and stuff. And they were just dropping him off. So I had a deal for him to go and fight, who am I thinking? Yoshida or what? Like I'm missing the name. I get old like this.
Okay, that's okay. In Japan,
No, who is it? The guy that always the guy that's Japanese and American always backs up.
Oh, you mean Japanese and Brazilian?
Yeah.
Lyoto Machida.
Yeah,
Machida. I'm saying Machida. I'm just drawing a blank.
It's okay.
And so we had a chance to go over and fight him, and no one even knew who he was at that time. Well, Joe said, let me check. And he goes, yeah, we're not under contract, so we can do whatever. Well, so we go over, we lose, and the UFC doesn't use him for 9 months because Dana says, to this day, he broke our contract. He went to Japan, and Joe Silva goes, no, Dana, he didn't. He goes, you didn't give him. And Dana's like, that's not how it happened. So whatever. In Dana's world, he also invented 5-minute rounds. So whatever it is, it is. And so finally he came back and he won again. And they're looking at Rich like this could be, he's a perfect champ, good looking guy, well-spoken,
educated.
He's got everything you would want. So they came to us and said, here's our offer. 7-fight deal, starting at 7-7, because he was 5-5 his last one, and going up by just 2s. They said, but here's the deal. We will put you on national television against Ken Shamrock. If you win that, we'll give you a title shot against Tanner, who you've already beaten. And if you beat Tanner, we'll put you on one of the first tough as a coach. And at the end of this deal, you will be the most famous guy in MMA. I mean, they'll just put you out there. And so we talked about it. And at that time, somebody, I wish I could remember who it was. Someone else had just gotten a really big win. And I can't think of who it was, same division at 185. And they basically said, if you don't take it, he will. And they were telling the truth, and so I go, Rich, we got to look at it this way. If you run through these 7, like I think, you'll be the most famous poor guy, in UFC, but you'll be super famous. And the next contract, things will change. I said, if not, here we're fighting for 5-5 and, I don't know what else. There's no guarantees. So we decided to do it. And about 4 fights through that, the bonuses started coming. Then when that show, he was eating at Dana's house. I mean, they were having, when he'd fight, they'd have him out and he'd eat with Dana's family. I mean, they were, if Dana likes you, there's nothing he won't do, so he was part of the family, even though they still held against him the Machida thing, because he still thought he was not loyal. Rich never turned a fight down. We questioned a couple that we thought, is this really the right move for him? And not because they're too tough, mostly because they're not famous enough. Why would we? You look where we're at, and now you want us to fight a guy that's 9-1. I mean, I think we're past that. And those were the things. But once that 7-fight deal ended, we renegotiated. everyone at that time was getting pay-per-view now, but the pay-per-view was always, you know, who really knows how many people buy those things?
That's
And
why I was wondering,
how
did you question that at all? Did you
Oh, of
question? I mean, how do you
course.
even verify that?
Of course, how do you even, you know, I mean, you know, here, I'm nobody asking a cable company for the real numbers. Dana's a guy that's making them millions and millions of dollars. And if he says, you know, give him these numbers, he probably will.
Yeah.
So I you know, I'm realizing this is not good. The other thing was, what I questioned was, what happens if it's not a pay-per-view? Now, Rich is headlining a fight night. How do we get paid then? Rich, they kept sending Rich to Germany, Ireland. You know, nobody's watching those shows. And as popular as Rich, I thought, was, he did not move the pay-per-view needle. And a lot of it was where he was, the shows they gave him, but he just really didn't move the needle. And so getting a percentage, I wasn't into that. So we talked him into just giving us a bonus. You know, the minimum bonus he could get, $500,000. The highest bonus, $1 million. And so when he's fighting those fights, you see, you know, I think it was Ken Pavia comes on and goes, "Oh my God, Rich Franklin's only making, you know, 70 and 70. Who the hell manages him?" And I'm like, you know, if you'd ever have a champion, Ken, maybe you'd understand how the workings, what you do, but you don't have to worry about that because you'll never have one. But you know, at that time, we're making really good money, guaranteed money. Now, later on, Anderson Silva redid his, and he took the pay-per-view. And I don't know if you guys remember, but after a couple of shows, he came back and said, "I want the old deal. I want to go back. I don't want this pay-per-view stuff." And I'm like, yeah, well, I'm ahead of you. We already got that taken care of. And that's why Rich and I think all the way through, we always made decisions together. I mean, we had heart-to-heart talks about it. And I was never afraid to go to the UFC and make demands and you know, when I thought we had leverage. And you know, he had a great career. If it wasn't for Anderson Silva, he may still be the 185-pound champ. No one else could beat him at 85, but Silva.
Now, Monte, a couple of times I felt like it was definitely, you could tell the UFC, I didn't think really ever liked managers, one of them involved, because they just drove up the prices.
Right.
Especially, like you said, you mentioned the Pav, he had several people in UFC. You had several people probably higher quality in UFC, but would you even say, I mean, it was my theory that one thing that a lot of the managers was doing was getting sponsorship. Do you think that had something to do with why they got this new Reebok deal, is to totally trying to eliminate managers altogether? That was what I thought what the reason for that was.
Well,
it's a horrible deal.
Yeah. Anytime that what the UFC would tell my guys is, look, we like you. We're going to take care of you. We'll take care of the purses. We're going to go out and get you sponsors. Why do you want to give a manager all this money and stuff? And it's like guys like Rich. He's like, look, he goes, it's funny here. He's a tough guy, a fighter. He's smart. He goes, I don't like negotiating. I don't like it. He goes, I lose every time. And he goes, you wouldn't think it, but he goes, if I make a deal and I walk out, I got a shitty deal. And so he goes, that's what I'm paying you for. Yeah. You know, you go in.
That's fair.
And one thing that I did with the UFC is from the very beginning, I didn't give in. I you know, if I thought I was right, they knew I'll take this thing to the end. I'm not going to give in. You're not going to intimidate me that none of my other guys will get in. I didn't let them do that. And so once you establish that you're not going to be pushed around, it got really easy for me. They just weren't going to, you know, if they'd say, so-and-so, he wants this. Who's his manager? Monte. Give it to him. You know, I mean, they had the money. It's not like they didn't have the money. It just, there were certain guys, and I think I was one of them, that they didn't really want to screw around with. And plus I had a lot of, you know, I'd say power, but at one time I had 32 guys in the UFC and 4 champs. I mean, so see, this is where I got in trouble with, they came out with that rule, no more than 2 fighters per manager per weight class. I did that to myself. We were sitting around in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Dana had come in. They were thinking about buying the UFC, and I had 8 guys on the card, and out of 8 fights. Joe Silva comes over to me, and he's saying something. He's, we tease each other all the time. We got along really well. And Joe says, something like, if you do this, I'm going to do this. And I go, really? I go, well, I got 8 guys on this card. I would hate to see all of them get sick today. And he goes, yikes. And I go, well, that's not going to happen. Well, Joe told me this. After I walked away, Dana said, who's that? And he goes, oh, Monte Cox, one of the managers. And he said, does he really have 8 guys on? And he goes, yeah. And he goes, if we buy this, we can never let a manager have that kind of power over us. We can't let him do it, which I agree.
Yeah.
Right.
I did it to myself. I was just fooling around.
Keep your mouth shut.
That's what brought in the thing. So.
All right. So, Chael Sonnen, obviously another real popular guy. He fought on one of your shows, the XFO, out in Crystal Lake. And he fought Terry Martin. And he goes out of his way to badmouth that show at every instance he possibly can. What is your take on what happened that night?
Oh, I know what happened. Number one, some of the things he said, you ever been to a Monte show? He goes, the cage is falling apart. He's making shit up, sometimes, and doesn't always fall apart. But we that particular show, I believe, was at the Sears Center.
No, it was in Lakemore.
Oh, it was Lakemore?
Yeah. Monty, you had me judge that event. That's why
I couldn't remember. I remember.
Yes.
I remember. I remember it was a really good crowd, and I remember Terry Martin. Oh, I'm thinking of Terry Martin when he fought Guida's brother at the Series.
Yeah.
I read what Sonnen said. He ripped this show and all that stuff, and then he said that the Martin fight was going back and forth, and then then he lost, and he didn't really go into it. And my response was the only thing going left and right were Terry's hands on his face. That Terry was beating the absolute shit out of him. It wasn't even close, and he quit on his stool at the end of the second round. And so you can say it might not have been a great cage, but he never saw it anyway, just on his back, But I said, I go, if I was Chael, I'd hate the extreme challenge too. He's never won in it. Every time he's fought, he's been beaten. And, I watched Jeremy Horn, who never wrestled a day in his life, pick Chael up and throw him into the corner and pound him till he was a bloody pulp. And they stopped it in like a minute and a half. And it's like, I couldn't believe that this guy was ever going to fight again. And so he didn't get the message. So we went to his place and beat him there. And then we went to a neutral place and beat him there. But anyway.
So there's a trilogy that we like to talk about here between Jeremy Horn and Chael Sonnen, who you obviously just referenced. A trilogy generally means there's some sort of tiebreaker or controversy. The only thing that happened in those fights is that Jeremy Horn finished him a different way every single time.
Yeah.
So and I respect Chael. Like I do like Chael, and I watch his show, but how does a trilogy like that happen? Like, it doesn't even make sense.
Like I say, you gotta have one guy that doesn't have all his marbles. If you got that guy, there's a chance. And I really think, and I actually like Chael, but I think he just couldn't believe. He would look at Jeremy and just could not believe that he can't beat that guy. And I don't think he's alone. I think there's a lot of guys that just, after they're done, they're like, how did I lose to that guy? And I remember Gary Myers, good friend of Chris's, Gary Myers.
Oh yeah.
He fought for me at Extreme Challenge 1. And the only opening I had was Jeremy. and I've known Gary Myers since he was 16. I was the sports editor of the paper in Muncie when he was a great wrestler. So I knew all these guys. And I told him, Gary, I go, I don't want you to lose on my show. And I go, he goes, send me a tape of him. So I did. And Gary comes back, he goes, Monty, he goes, if I lose to that guy, he goes, I'll quit the sport right there. And I'm like, he's a lot better than you think. And he's a lot, and he just said, I'll be fine. And then, Jeremy armbarred him in the first round. And, it's just, that's the feeling. You look and you just think, I can't, no way I'm going to lose to that guy. It's happened 94 times, 95 times.
So Monty, Jeremy's got like 130, 140 fights. Something. And that's me like guesstimating at a low end. And he disclosed to us in his interview that he's never suffered a cut before in a fight.
Yeah.
Unreal.
Never been knocked down except when he fought Liddell for the title. He kind of set back. It wasn't really dropped, but in his entire time, he's never been knocked out. He's never had a cut. He's never,
he might be a lizard person. That's what we surmised.
That's not right.
Pat Miletich's conspiracy firm might want to take a deep dive into Jeremy Warren.
And I'll tell you the thing.
Hey, at least in hook and shoot, we gave him a black eye.
Hey, good work.
Wasn't that when he tried to get paid?
No.
Whatever.
No. The thing with Jeremy, he could still fight another 10 years. I'm serious. He could. The stuff that he does is so unique. And it's part of it is the confidence, and he never panics, and just the way he does things, it never gets old. He's he needs to get in better shape. He wants to make one more kind of run at some good fights, not to be a champion or anything. Just I think he'd kind of like to get to 100 wins officially on the thing.
You can't blame him. Him.
I'm the one trying to give it to him. I'm trying to put him on shows and but he needs to get back down to 205. He's about 225 the last fight.
It's so weird, Monty. Usually with a fighter, the sport passes them up. You see so many guys from that era, they're really good to a certain point, and then the sport evolves, it moves. It just hasn't seemed to happen with him yet. It just seems to be able to move with the sport. It's very strange.
Well, he goes, the reason that the sport doesn't pass him by is because in striking, he's never been a good striker. He goes, in wrestling, he's never wrestled. So it can't pass you by when it started out ahead of you.
Right.
So he just is together. It's like the perfect storm. He has just enough striking, just enough grappling, and then better than average grappling, but just enough wrestling. He would drive me crazy in how he let people take him down. And I would say, damn it, Jeremy, stop letting him, make him work at it. He goes, but I don't care if they take me down. And I'm like, but I go, but if it goes to a decision, you're in trouble. He goes, if he keeps taking me down, I'll catch him. And those were the fights he lost, like Babalu in Denver. No doubt he had that fight won. And he just kept letting Babalu hang in there because he kept thinking early in that fight, he almost caught him. And from that point, he said, I'm going to get him. He's going to make that mistake. And it wasn't until there's 3 minutes left and Babalu is doing nothing but holding on for dear life because he's got it won. And Jeremy didn't sub him. And those were, he almost got overconfident in his submissions, but why not if you're submitting at a 85%, rate?
Now you're talking about his fighting Babalu in the IFC tournament.
Yeah.
That's correct. Which was,
Babalu was exhausted. He had two horrible, tough, long fights. And Jeremy whizzed through his two fights, knocking out Forrest and that good rush. And there's no way that he didn't have, if he had it all to do over again, he should have just attacked and put the pressure on him from the get go, and he didn't. And that was one of the mistakes that he made in his career.
Okay, so Monte, I mean, obviously you've match-made tens of thousands of fights. You've sent people to multiple countries. So we can talk about your high success rate, but every once in a while I like to talk about like the misses, if it's okay with you. Like, and it's completely, absolutely with my utmost respect, because I do respect you as what you've done.
If you haven't made a mistake, you haven't been matchmaking long.
100%.
Miguel can tell you that. We all make them. I mean, you know, half the time we're making matches with guys we've never seen.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you match up? Real quick, and this is a matchmaker's dilemma. I had a show in Minnesota. I had a guy call me. He goes, I got a guy, he's 5'10", 170 pounds. He's got decent wrestling, okay submissions, and he's not a very good striker. All right, then I get a guy call me, and he goes, I got a guy, he's 5'10", 170, same thing. Not really a striker. He wrestled some, and his subs are decent. I'm like, ta-da, perfect, identical. Put them together. They were no more equal. You know, one guy is a ripped up stud wrestler, you know, eating raw meat. And the other guy, you know, he just looks like
the truth.
He reads books for training.
Yeah.
And the wrestler guy just steamrolled him in 30 seconds. It wasn't even close. Well, the guy that lost, his manager goes, you set us up. And I stopped him right in his tracks. And I go, no. You did it to your own fighter. I said, he's decent. He's decent in jiu-jitsu. He didn't even know how to put a guard on. I go, he's an okay wrestler. He just fell down, you know. And he goes, well, I thought if I told you the truth, you wouldn't put him in. And I said, so that's on you. I said, I took your word. I took their word. He told the truth. You blew your guy up, and your guy got hammered for it. So don't look at me on that, you know. But that's what we'd run into, is some guys are doing the opposite. They're downplaying their guy, you know, like it's Matt Hughes. Oh, I think he wrestled, you know, and then it's Anderson Silva on this side going, well, he doesn't strike, you know, and so you got guys lying in all directions, you know, and so we got to, if we haven't seen them, we have to try to make a match out of a bunch of people lying. And so it's not easy. Once you've seen them,
it opens up.
There's a little more responsibility on the matchmaker to say, I've seen them both, and I think this is a good matchup. Then when you screw up, you just went, okay, I was wrong on that one.
Yeah, and like Anderson Silva, they tell you he doesn't box at all. It's a little more kickboxing, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like one of my favorites is like, I ran into Kerry Schall years later, and he fought, I think, Fedor Emelianenko in Fedor's second or third fight.
Right.
So how does that fight come to fruition?
Well, back then I was big with rings. I got in pretty early, and Motoko Yoshida, who at that time was their matchmaker, ended up being my partner for 25 years. And the Russians in rings were atrocious back then. Volkan and guys like that, they were all old wrestlers and stuff. And, you know, we'd go over and just pound some of these Russians. They were just so bad. And so she goes, Monte, I got a guy 2-0. I go, how big is he? You know, 5'10", 5'11", 220, 230. And I tell Kerry, I go, Kerry, I got this dude, $2,500. We're going, this is the old days, $2,500
Good money back then.
Can. He goes, I'm in. So we're at weigh-ins, and Kerry's, you know, 6'3".
He's huge.
Roided to the, I mean, he's ridiculous.
The meat truck.
Yeah. And then in comes Fedor. Fedor gets on the scale, and Kerry leans over to me and he goes, they're going to arrest me for murder because he's going to kill him. And so I go, yeah, oh my God, this is ugly. And then they get in and everything. I mean, we're so confident. And 30 seconds in, down goes Schall. You know, Shaw's on the ground, bleeding from here, and he's looking at me like I'm going to do something. I'm like, ah! And Fedor is on top of him and goes for an armbar. And, you know, Kerry rolls through the armbar and gets on top. Still doesn't know what country he's in at that point. And he tries to punch, and they stand him up quick. And he's doing the, you know, the stagger. And then boom, down goes Schall. So it didn't last very long. And but no one knew who he was. And so Rich and I were in Korea, and Fedor was there, and I wrote a sign that said, "I beat the meat truck," and I had him hold it with Rich and I on each side doing this, and we framed it and gave it to him for Christmas. But yeah, we didn't know who it was, and Kerry always tells the story. He goes, people ask me, who did Monte like more, me or Tim Sylvia? He goes, I'm more of a nice guy. Tim's kind of a jerk, but he goes, I'd have to go with Tim. He goes, we both fought Fedor. I got paid $2,500 and Tim got $800,000. He goes, I'm thinking he likes Tim better than me.
Yeah. That's incredible.
Right. Another fight. So Jen Pulver leaves the UFC, but as you were talking about, he went to the UFO where he picked up a win, and then pardon me?
Against Murahama.
Yes.
Great fight.
Yes.
I mean, if you ever get a chance to watch it, Murahama was a very good kickboxer, stand-up fighter, and Jens was stubborn, would not go to the ground, he was going to stand there and he was going to trade with him no matter what. And
so,
I'll tell you a quick story on this, because everything reminds me of a story. So we're there, me, Horn, and Jens. He's the fourth fight. So they do everyone stands up and they do all the stuff they do in Japan, and then we go to the locker room. Jens goes, man, I'm hungry. And I go, I'm starving. I'm always starving. So we're in the Tokyo Dome. We go all the way up to the top, and the whole way we're going, people are stopping us and getting autographs and stuff. And at that time, I had Rings USA going, a show in Japan that they played in Japan, televised. So people know me, and they're asking me, and I'm laughing with Jeremy. Jeremy's like, I'm getting more autographs than you. And then someone will go, oh, Monte. And I go, yes. So we go upstairs, we get chicken, and we're in the mezzanine. And I walk over to the opening to look down. And I go, Jeremy, what's Murahama look like? And he goes, he's that like short, stocky guy with the straight up hair. And I go, that guy that's in the ring? And he looks down, he goes, holy shit. He goes, Jens, you're up. And so we're at the top of the mezzanine. Jens is eating chicken. And so we drop everything. We go running down the Tokyo Dome, ignoring everyone, getting by, run in the back, doesn't wrap his hands, just throws the gloves on, no warm up, nothing, goes running into the ring. There, the whole time we're coming down the steps, it's like, Jen Pulver. And we're like running down the steps. And so he goes in and just right off the bat, they just start banging each other. I mean, just cracking each other. And after the second round, it's real quiet, in those places, even though you got other people. And I go, Jeremy, I go, look, we've got to talk Jens into trying a takedown. I go, I don't care if he gets it. Murahama's just sitting on that back foot, just throwing bombs. I go, you got to get him. If we can get him on the balls of his feet where, he's afraid of the takedown, that's going to help us a lot. And he goes, I agree. We're going to tell him. So ding, the bell rings. Jens comes over. He goes, I heard you guys. I'm not fucking taking him down, so shut up. And we're like, all right, but you got to throw more jabs. You're loading up the left. He just wasn't going to do it, I forgot that he can hear everything while we're there.
That's
you know what was shocking on that card? Was I have actually looked at that fight, is the fact that, he was the UFC champion and like literally left with the belt.
Yeah.
And you got him as your fourth fight of the night?
Yeah.
It's kind of something you headline with. So he goes from that fight. He fights Dwayne Ludwig. He takes a loss, hard fight. And then I believe you guys were looking for a bounce back fight where you ran into Jason Maxwell, who in my opinion is probably had his best night of his entire life that night.
Yeah. Well, I used to manage Jason. And
I like Jason.
I took Jason over to fight a couple times in Japan. I can't remember what those shows were called.
Horizon?
But he fought me several times over there and stuff like that. The thing with Jason was he wasn't he wasn't confident in himself. You know, the guy had talent, no doubt about it, but he would kind of panic before his fights and stuff. He'd kind of lose his, you know, if he could have mentally kept focused, I think he'd beat a lot of people. And so that fight in particular, I don't know for sure, but I know that when he was in the back, they had a heck of a time getting him to come out. he wasn't going to come out.
Now, Miguel, that was on a hook and shoot.
Huh?
Was that on a hook and shoot, Miguel?
I was the matchmaker for his fight with Jason Maxwell's fight with Jen Pulver. And
okay.
I believe off of that success, Maxwell was sort of looking, you know, for somebody to help him out. And inevitably, like a lot of other people, you know, Monte really becomes a clear choice at some point. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
So I think that's how it went because.
Okay, that makes sense. And then, you know, do you remember him not wanting to come out?
No, for the Pulver fight?
Yeah.
You know, no, I don't remember that. I would have had to have been out for the rest of the show, and I mean, I'd have to talk to Bob and stuff like that. But I do agree with you that you're talking about a guy there who, you know, didn't reach his true potential, and maybe it was because, you know, of nerves and stuff like that. You know, there had to be a reason because he was very talented. You know.
Yeah. And we just were told by other people that, you know, after the fight, I was going, you know, wow, we didn't see that coming. And guys told us, they go, he wasn't going to fight. He was in the back saying, I don't have to do this. You can't make me do it. And they finally, he you know, he put it together, but he came out and nothing against him, but he was scared. And that was, I mean, who wouldn't be at that point, right? Mm-hmm. And that helped him. I mean, he came out like 100 miles an hour and he kicked Jens in the balls and down goes Jens. And I'm in the corner with others and he goes, God damn, he goes, that was a good one. And I go, well, you got 5 minutes. He goes, it's going to take more than 5 minutes. And I go, well, we don't have 5 minutes. He goes, I'll take care of that. And so he waits his 5, he gets up, everything's good. They tap hands and Jens boots him right up the middle, kicks him right in the ball, straight up between the legs. Down goes Maxwell. And then
what it is.
It's got a few more minutes now. Like that. And that was just him saying, afterwards he told me, he goes, you can't foul someone that bad like he did to Jens and then just tap gloves and like it's okay. Because now the rest of the fight, I'm walking around, you know, with my balls in my shoes, and he's fine. So he goes, you got to even it up, and he did. I mean, that was a straight, that was a south to north punt, you know. And so then they get up, and I think, okay, everything's okay. And Maxwell rushes him, and I just remember Jens, wasn't it a knee that just bam to the head that it ended fast?
Yeah, I remember he got hurt with one blow. I don't remember.
Yeah, one big. I think he got him against the ropes and hit him with the knee. And like I said, Maxwell had talent, no doubt about it. I think the longer the fight goes, the better it is for Jens. But in that one, he did good. So, I mean, yeah, that was me looking at Maxwell's record before the Jens fight, and it wasn't all that impressive.
No.
And so, you know, we thought it was a fairly safe fight.
And, you know, just like any of those people, any guys with talent, you never know what's going to happen. It just takes one punch, one kick, I mean, you can just because. I mean, it was just his night, man. Nothing you can do about it sometimes, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Miletich's gym, where obviously you kind of got the most of your guys you managed came from there.
Yeah. Or else I got them somewhere else and I brought them there.
That's correct.
There was a lot of that. I'd recruit them and bring them to the gym.
So it got huge. It was, you know, the best gym in the entire country at one point. Yeah. And then overnight it was gone. What no one really talks about what happened to the gym. Why did it end?
It's funny because we were probably the top gym in the country for like 10 years.
Yeah.
It didn't really just disappear. We were we were the top for a long time. All the way from when Pat started till the end when Tim was champ. There's a lot of years in there that we had at least one champ. But anytime you have too much success, I think it happened to Shamrock's gym.
Yeah.
I think it happens to a lot of people. Once you get that much success, you got a bunch of alpha males and egos, and it's very difficult for someone to control that. So they find other things. Jeremy found Jennifer Howell and goes off to Utah. I mean, that was a big blow. He was the ground coach, the guy everyone talked to, the guy that trained all the time. That was huge that we lost him. Then Matt was never in the early days, he was part of the gym, but once he became champ, he liked to spend his time back in Hillsboro, and he would show up at the gym 2 weeks before his fight and go, okay, get me ready. And there was some resentment because other people were saying, well, we've been here for 3 months getting ready for our fights. Where were you? And so there became, that little bit of thing. And then he started his own team. And then Pat retired. And when Pat retired, Pat was the glue. Jeremy was the glue, but so was Pat. Pat, I never say Pat was a great trainer. I don't mean it in any bad way. I just think Pat was best when he was a fighter because he would say, follow me, do what I do, work out like I work out. And if you did, you became a stud or you died trying. He trained like no one. Maybe Shirk is like crazy stuff, but for that time, Pat was a maniac, 3 times a day, running crazy ass hills, and where everybody pukes on that hill. But then when he quit fighting and he now has a wife and a family, he said, well, why don't we start training once a day? And everyone's like, well, no, we don't want to do that. And there were other priorities. So I think at that point there wasn't, it just slowly started to fade and guys got older. When it started, they really weren't young. When they all started, they were all close to 30. And then they were all champs and at their peak around 32. 30, it's funny, when I look back from Horn to all those guys, 32 was like a magical age. That's when they peaked. That's when they were at their best. And as they got older, 36 was a lot harder to keep it going. I mean, look at Matt Hughes. When he first started, no one could wrestle with him. When at the end of his career, he couldn't take me down. I mean, it just was a weird thing. He'd given up on his wrestling. He wanted to be a striker so bad. And he just kind of forgot where he came from. And all of a sudden, St. Pierre's throwing him around. Now, St. Pierre can wrestle, but there's no way BJ Penn out wrestles Matt when Matt's Matt. And all of a sudden he's dumping him and stuff. And it's like, if only Matt could wrestle, it's so weird saying it, but it's true. And then all of a sudden we couldn't find anyone for Matt to beat. I mean, they tried, they love Matt. And boy, we just, guys have gotten so good. You talk about the sport passing you by and all of his, I think his lack of training. Matt was a natural. I mean, just a crazy natural. I can tell you right now, 100% never took a steroid, never did anything. I don't think anyone thinks he did, but he didn't. He was too afraid of needles. But two, he told me one time, he goes, I'm not, it's not that I'm against all this stuff or I'm too good for it. He goes, but what's it going to do for me? He goes, I don't need strength. I got strength. He goes, I don't need endurance. I got endurance. He goes, you put a needle in my butt and I can have some flashy boxing. Go ahead. Let's do it. But he goes, strength and endurance. What do I need that? What do I need? So
yeah. Matt had one of those personalities that either you really liked it or he drove you absolutely up a wall. And
Oh.
One of the fighters that I think you may have recruited to come there, that he absolutely drove up a wall, and we're going to have him on here eventually, is Marcus Davis.
Yeah. The striker from Maine.
Yes, him and Tim Sylvia, I think, kind of came together as a package deal over there.
I honestly don't know too much about that. Dynamic. I really don't. I mean, it got to a point for me. I'm not sure when Marcus got there, what year it would be, but in real quick, in 2009, 2010, my kids got in a really bad car crash, and they almost all died. And they both had emergency surgeries. My daughters got cut from here to their bellies, and a kid that was driving tried to pass a snowplow, lost control and hit one of those big telephone poles, and it split the car in half.
Jesus!
And it went right between my two daughters, and we were just lucky that they lived. And that was I saw that as a big wake up call. And I said, I was never home. I mean, my wife raised my kids, while I was in Japan or wherever. I mean, every weekend I was gone. And so that was I think my oldest daughter at that time was like a junior in high school. And then my other one would have been a sophomore, my son in 8th grade. And I said, that's it. I mean, I could have lost my whole family in, snap of the fingers. So that tells me something. And so I called all my fighters and said, you know what, guys, this just happened to me. I'm going to spend time with my family, and I'm not going to travel anymore. And they were like all cool with that. They all got it. I mean, and that's how it is to this day. I quit traveling, and I mean, Miguel or anyone could tell you, I was I did 2 million miles with United. I mean, I was never not home.
Yes.
Never home. I mean, between Japan and then when I did M1 Global, with Russia and I mean, I don't know how I did it. I do remember waking up nights when it's all dark, and I'd walk right into the wall because I think I'm at home, and that's the hallway at home, and I'm in some room somewhere, and I'd forget where I am. Where the hell am I? And so it's. But because of that, I also didn't go down to the gym all the time. I just kind of slowed down. 2010, that was kind of when my career started to go down. I started doing less shows. My fighters were starting to get older and retiring. Losing even the good people like the Joe Dirksons and guys like that. I had so many of those types of guys. They all started getting older. All of them with like 70 wins or 60 wins or whatever, but that was the end. So I don't know about Matt and Davis.
Okay. Well, I'm going to throw a couple old school names at you. Big Poppa Schnake.
Yeah, before his time. I mean, I can remember when Bruce Buffer said, "It's not about the announcer. He's jumping around and wearing those clothes and screaming and." He goes, the announcer's job is just to relay information and not to be heard, not seen. True story.
How times change, huh?
Yeah,
wow.
Times change.
You're not going to tell me he didn't steal from Chris in regards to that, because that was.
No, come on, yeah.
That was BPS.
This, the whole flip. Yeah, we won't even get into it. But Schnake. He was something. He drove me crazy. I love him to death. He drove me crazy. The guy was just so out of control. Never on time. Saying stuff that makes holy poop on a stick. What the hell does that mean? Holy poop on a stick. He said it all the time. I go, stop saying that. And it just doesn't make sense. And then he had a good thing when, like, if a guy is mounted on someone and they're pounding away and they're going to finish it and the bell rings, he would go, time. And that was cool. But then he would also do it when they're separated and they haven't had any action for 3 minutes. he'd do the time, and I go, Schnake, that it doesn't work then, you know, and I'd have to explain all this stuff to him. And at one time he went on, if he went on crowd reaction, if he started talking about his Marines, and the crowd reacted, oh my God, there's a 5-minute Marine deal. I just announced the fighters, you know, that's all I want. Just announce them, you know, and he would always come late. Always. We were doing,
you know why?
In Minneapolis, weekly shows. He came late 3 weeks in a row. And I told him, I go, Schnake, I go, this is the last, I'm not putting up with this shit. I go, you come late next week, you will not get paid. And he goes, all right, boss. And next week, 30 minutes late, I'm standing at the door. He comes, I go, stop right there. I go, you have two choices. You can come on in, do the show, and I'm not paying you. Or you can just turn around, get back in your car, don't come to any of my shows anymore, I'll get someone else. He goes, no, I'll do the show. And then after the show, every time I look around, he's following me, you know? And he finally goes, Monte, you're really not going to pay me. I go, not a penny. I go, I warned you 4 times. I go, now just get out of here. And I go, I'll see you next week at 7. I go, not 5 after 7, not 7:30, not 8:15. 7, and he showed up at 7. You know,
yeah,
with him, you had to do that. And when I take a break at a show, I have a stopwatch around my neck. I say a 15-minute intermission. I hit the stopwatch at 12 minutes. I bring everyone back to the thing. When I say 15, I mean 15, not 30, 40. You know, I can't stand that. And so I you know, I'm calling, and there's no Schnake. There's no Schnake, you know. Then we catch him. He's screwing a ring girl in a bathroom. You know, it's like, dude, you know, I mean, you know, that's drove me crazy. And so, but he ends up dying from his diabetes, and he towards the end he was hurt. He was really hurting, and we were in Omaha. Council Bluffs, and he did it to me again. He's got to go. We're 10 minutes late. Finally, he comes out, and I'm ready. He knows I'm going to lay into him, and he goes, Monte, he goes, please don't yell at me. He goes, dude, I just shit myself. And he goes, I was trying to clean up. Ooh, and he had shit himself. From a guy sitting 3 inches away, I'll tell you. But that was I think he died with like a month later. Yeah, he just wouldn't stop eating wrong, and so he just wouldn't do it.
He had one of the worst driving records that I have ever seen. Like, he had me run him one time and just try to help clean up his driving record. He had like $7,000 in unpaid tickets. It was
a run Laverne Clark sometimes, same thing, but it was he would get stopped, they'd fine him, and he didn't have the money then, so he'd go home, and then he wouldn't pay it. So now he does the bail, forfeits his bail, and now there's a warrant for his arrest. Next time he's driving, he gets stopped, there's a warrant, he goes in, he takes all the money he just made announcing to pay things off, and he pays a down payment. He goes home, but he doesn't pay the rest. That's forfeited, and now there's a warrant for his arrest. And it just never stopped.
This could have all been avoided had you paid him that one time, I bet.
You know, you know, that's what I tried to explain to Laverne. Laverne would get a $900 ticket, and he'd pay $500, and then when he wouldn't pay the rest, he owes $900 again. And I go, if you just pay the $900, it's all gone. He paid, you know, thousands of dollars in $500, you know.
Hey, Monte, I got to blame you one time I had to fight Laverne Clark, and I didn't get paid for it. My check's still bouncing right now. The only reason I took the fight was because I said, man, Monte Cox has got like 8 guys on this card. We're going to get paid. That shit did not happen. Ed Kim, where you at? I don't know where you're at.
Boy, did I get, you know who did that to us was the girl that's now the commissioner in Illinois. She did that. That was all her. What happened was I was talking to, oh my gosh, I'm going to forget these guys' names. I was talking to the commission. I said, this Ed Kim guy, I go, I'm hearing you don't have any money. And I had Rich Franklin, Tim Sylvia. We had about 30 grand worth of guys.
Yeah, Tony Frickland.
Yeah, we had like 30 grand.
Eugene Jackson.
And I said, I don't think my guys are going to get paid.
I bought a ticket to that fight.
You were the guy.
You're the one.
I mean, my $30 can only go so far.
Yep. And so I kept calling the commission, call them on Monday. Now I go, let me get this straight. The rules, the law. He's first-time promoter, no checks. It's he's got to have either what do you call the cashier checks or cash. Yep, we don't take checks. And I go, okay. And then I call on Wednesday and go, hey, I'm just double checking because I'm hearing bad stuff. Nope, that's how it's got to be. Blah blah blah. It's all set. Then I get there on Friday for the weigh-ins, and there's the girl. What's her name? I can't think of her name.
Nancy.
Huh?
Nancy.
Yeah, Nancy. So she's running the show. All the guys I've been talking to are nowhere. And I go, Nancy, just confirming we're not taking checks, right? He goes, oh yeah, we're taking checks. I go, what? I go, listen, she goes, I don't care. I'm running things here. She goes, we're taking checks. I go, he's a first-time promoter. That's against your rules. And she goes, argue all you want. We're taking checks. Now, not only did she break the law there, there's one thing commissions have to do. The guy who has the bond has to write the checks, because if it doesn't happen that way, if I have the bond and Chris writes the checks bounce. You go back to the bond company and go, Chris Lytle's check bounced. They go, who's that? We bonded Monte Cox. So, I mean, the worst commissions in the country know that. Not Nancy.
Damn.
Not Nancy. Nancy didn't do it. They had some other guys. She let all the checks out that way, and nobody got paid a penny. And I should have. It's in my book. I explain how I should have. I should have sued her. I could have got rid of her. I could have for what they would have canned her. And I kept thinking, but I'm gonna be doing shows in Illinois. Do I want to start that? Do I want to be that guy? And so I said, you know what? I'm gonna let it go. One of the worst decisions ever. And then Ed Kim just goes and hides in the basement of his parents' house and never to be seen again. I was hoping you and your cop friends took care of it.
Yeah.
Chicago's known for that.
Monty, when he was handing out the checks, was there any hesitation? So, because he knew he was bouncing them to everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Was it smooth? Was it a handshake? What happened?
I said, so how long till these bounce? I told him, how long do these bounce? And he goes, no, I have rich parents. They're backing me.
Oh my God.
And he did have rich parents, I guess, with some money. And so I go, well, all right. And I told all my guys there, I go, guys, I don't know what to say. This was not supposed to be this way. And, Nancy, somehow, it's Nancy Ng, isn't it? Ng?
Yes.
Yeah. And somehow she got involved in, this is what happened. So, yeah, one of the all-time screw-ups and you knew he was, what I never like. And you guys Miguel, definitely you know this. When you go to a show and it's a fairly big show, this was a big show, big arena.
Yes.
And Ed Kim didn't have a worry in the world. He went out the night before to strip clubs. He was hung out and chatted with everybody. There wasn't a worry in the world. And then Saturday came, and like 10 o'clock in the morning, I get the panic call. I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to do this. And I'm like, well, what the hell were you doing last night?
Yeah, out the strip club.
Yeah, you will never see me in a show out having fun when I got stuff to do. I'll stay up all night Friday. I don't want to wake up Saturday with the to-do list. So all night, I could be putting stickers on chairs at midnight, but I'm getting all the shit done beforehand. That's just something I learned from the beginning, because when you don't do that, nothing good happens. And he was like that. He was out, we were out till 2 a.m, and he just didn't have a care in the world. And I thought, no, boy.
Man, I knew when I first got there. I didn't know who this Ed Kim guy was, but as soon as I saw him, I thought he was like, this guy's like 25 years old. I was like, this is that good, man. I was like, where's this guy? How this guy pull this off? And the only thing that made me still confident was like, I saw I mean, it was a hell of a card. I mean, you got to admit that was
very good.
I mean, great card. It's easy to put on a great card when you don't have to worry about paying people.
Yeah, when you don't pay, you're not going to pay.
Oh, you don't do advertising. I don't know what he didn't do, but nobody showed up there.
Not a single poster was put up, Chris. Not a single poster.
There was nobody there, man. I mean, it was terrible for that good of fights. It sucked.
And the few local guys that were on the card never even had tickets to sell.
Well, yeah. Monty brought up Laverne Clark, and I know I've talked to Monty a little bit off the record. There's a great Laverne Clark story about him hiding an injury with his shoes in the UFC.
Oh my gosh.
Monty, why don't you take it away here?
You know, Laverne's old school. You know, he needed the money and he fought for money. He didn't fight for anything else. It's just, I got to get paid. And he's fighting, he's 4-0 in the UFC and does not know what a submission is. He really doesn't. I mean, what he would say is that one of them there holds? You know, and Pat and I would say, keep quiet, don't say anything.
Yeah.
But he was a Brazilian killer, good wrestler, great boxer. So they couldn't take him down. They sure couldn't strike with him, and he just pummeled people. Well, he gives me a call. He's fighting a rematch with Fabiano Iha, and he goes, Monty, I'm going to wear shoes for this fight. I go, no. I go, Vern, you can't wear shoes. I go, he has a submission guy. That's just going to give him something to grab hold of, and it's not going to be good for you. He goes, no, I'm going to wear them. I go, Vern, I can't let you do it. And he goes, you need to come to the gym. So I go to the gym. Have you heard this, Chris?
No.
Oh, so I go to the gym, and
wait for it.
I see him there, and he's wearing shoes, but one shoe is like a size 16, and the other is a 10. Or an 11. And I'm like, what the hell? And he goes, we need to go to the back. So we go to the back. He starts undoing his shoe, the big one, takes it off. His foot is a bloody pulp, and it's all wrapped and covered in toilet paper and blood everywhere. Matt Hughes, who's a farmer, almost pukes. It's one of the nastiest things you can see. And I go, what the hell? And he goes, I was mowing this lawn, and he goes, and I had a rope, and I was lowering it down and bringing it up, and he goes, my foot slipped underneath, and he goes, I knew it was bad. I didn't want to look. He goes, but a piece of my shoe flew out the tip of it. He goes, and it was sitting over there, and he said, I could see my little toes in it.
Oh.
and he said he slowly takes his foot out and looks, and the blade, his foot must have turned, and it split the big toe down the middle. It was filleted, and it was the size, the whole thing, the toes the size of a fist, and all the other little toes are little. I mean, they're half toes, and I'm like, I can't believe it. And he goes, I go, well, then I go, no, this is done. He goes, oh, I'm fighting. He goes, I need them. I'm fighting, and I'm like, I go, well, you're gonna have to wear shoes because he can't go out like that. And Iha, then he got he's had a conspiracy theory that someone leaked it to Iha because Iha went after his legs, and I'm like, well,
of course he did.
He was going to go after your legs. You know, he wasn't going to stand with you, but yeah, he fought with 2 different size shoes and a bloody pulp of a foot.
Hey, that reminds me, I guarantee right afterwards, too, he did what everybody did. You know, they'd go to the hospital afterwards because UFC wouldn't pay. Everybody be like, I don't care if you fought for 30 seconds. Yeah, I hurt my back and my shoulder. Every time at the emergency room, there's about 15 fighters. Yep. I can imagine. I don't know what happened. This guy chopped up my foot.
Yeah.
Trying to report that one. Threw my toes off. I don't know what happened, man.
That's fantastic. All right, so we started mentioning promoters. Obviously, Ed Kim's name got brought up. Who, Monty, I might add, anybody that's fought in that card, we always ask about their experience. Like, that is a recurring question on this show.
Yeah.
Other all-star promoters that we also like to bring up is Jamie Levine. What are your experiences with him?
I'll give you a different view of Jamie than most people. I like the guy. I mean, I liked him a lot. I mean, I did. He was a very good friend. Would I let him hold my wallet? Come on, no way.
You want to watch your kids?
Well, I don't know. You know that story, right? No, it's not what it is, what you think it is. But anyway, he was a guy that he was a hustler, and a kind of a con man and stuff. God damn, he was funny. He was so funny. I laughed with him all the time. He put together some of the greatest fights ever done.
Yes.
I mean, some of those WF fights, I'm telling you, man, they were amazing. And
he stand a test of time. Yes.
Yeah, and I think I could do the same thing with someone else's money. It's a lot harder when it's your money.
Yeah.
When the show loses 75, 100,000 and you don't lose anything, that's my kind of show. I like to do those.
Great fights.
But he was just, he was comical. Like, we put together one fight, Dave Menne's fighting Pele. He brings me in to my only job. I just said, what do you want me to do? I go, I can't judge or anything because I got guys in it. He goes, when they come in with the cards, will you just add them up? And so I can give it to the referee, 30-27, whatever. I went to Ball State, so I can do 10.
You'll be all right. You can figure that out.
Indiana, anything bigger, to the 10s I can do. So I'm doing that, and he had the Modico was there, and so was Maida from Rings. So they put Maida as one of the judges. The guy really doesn't speak any English, but he's one of the judges, and the fight goes, and the first, after 2 rounds, I get things back. Pele's got to stop.
You know, I was one of the other judges, right?
I didn't realize it was that bad.
Be careful.
He was drinking.
But
be careful. I'll edit this.
I'm going to change what I said about you in my book.
Yeah.
But no, so the scorecards come back, and after 2 rounds, one has it split, but the other 2 both have 2-0 Menne. And I believe that was just a 3-rounder. I'm pretty sure it was. And then the 3rd round goes, and Pele starts going good. And the weird thing was Maida had a 10-8 round in the first 2. There wasn't really a 10-8, but that's what he had. And so it didn't matter because he had both of them one way. But Dave had this thing, and he did it all the time. I think he did it just to freak me out. With 20 seconds left in a fight that he's clearly got won, Dave would like to stand up and let the guy beat the piss out of him for 15 or 20 seconds, just to drive me crazy, And I mean, he's throwing back. And if you look at that fight, the last 15 seconds of that fight, they probably threw 40 punches, with Pele landing 23 of them, I mean, and I'm like, Jesus, why do you do that? And he's like, Dave goes, you can never understand Dave. He just mumbles. Why'd you do that, Dave? There you go. All right. I don't know. Whatever. And so then the Jamie comes running over to me, and he goes, "We're going to overtime." And I go, "Shut up." He goes, "I'm the promoter. We're going to overtime." I go, "Doesn't work that way." I go, we go to the scorecards. If there's a winner, there's a winner. He goes, "God damn it, I want overtime." And I go, "It doesn't matter." And he was always, he wouldn't, he listened to me. If I told him to, something, he wasn't going to try to go over me. And so we added up, and Dave did win. And then he comes to me and he goes, "I'll tell you this." He goes, "Every show I do from now on, there's going to be a clause in the contract that says the promoter can call overtime anytime he wants." And I'm like, ridiculous. But where I get two more parts about him. Where he got in trouble, he went to a nightclub, 21 and over nightclub, and this is after he's divorced. He has a girl come on to him, and he takes her home. They have sex. The next morning, she's planning their day. Well, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. And he goes, whoa. He goes, look, it was fun, but I mean, it was just fun. He goes, not looking for a relationship. And she goes, that's too bad. She goes, cause I'm 17. Well, 18 whatever the age of consent was. She was shorted by 5 days. 5 days. He showed me the court stuff. 5 days later, it would have been fine. This wasn't. Her father was the prosecutor at Dade County.
Oh,
big mistake, So he thinks nothing's going to happen. The prosecutor, they arrest him. And he told me, he goes, the prosecutor came in and scared the shit out of him. He goes, literally, I could just sit there and shit myself. He told me what he was going to do to me and how when I went to jail that he was going to make sure that every day that I was bent over a bench somewhere. And he said, or you can plead guilty and get a year of house arrest and stand up for what, admit what you did. Well, he took the deal. I mean, Jamie, he was scared to death. I don't know that I wouldn't be either,
And that's what happened. But he had to register. He had to register as a sex offender.
He had to register as a sex offender. I mean, look, he told me, he goes, Monty, he goes, if you see this girl, he goes, number one, she's in a 21 and over place.
Yeah.
But number two, no way did she look like a 17-year-old girl. And he goes, there's no way I was the first guy she'd ever been with. He goes, because she knew shit I didn't know. But it is what it is. So he, the other funny one was he calls me and he's upset. And I had gone to the Bahamas with him and his wife, Lorraine, my wife and him, and we'd done a few things with him. I liked him. And he calls me, he goes, Monty, Lorraine's divorcing me. And I go, oh, dude, I'm sorry. He goes, yeah. He goes, I don't know what took the bitch so long. He goes, I fucked around on her. I treated her like shit. He goes, I called her names. And I go, you asshole. And he's like, yeah, he goes, I don't care. He goes, it's, he goes, I'm just trying to keep some of my shit. So he calls me 3 weeks later. And he goes, you're not going to believe this. No, it was over a month later. He goes, I go to my best friend. He's a lawyer. And he says, what does Lorraine know? And he goes, well, she knows where everything's buried, all the shit I've done, where the cash is. She knows everything. Wow. He goes, first thing, you need to get her to agree to have me be the lawyer for both of you. Don't let her get another lawyer, because he goes, I'm here. I'll help you. And so that's he tried it. And she said, no, I'm not stupid. Fought with her. Finally, a week later, all right, let's just get this done. So they all sit down and he goes, and the lawyer starts off saying, look, first it's just him and Jamie. He goes, you got to give her the house. He goes, yeah, I don't care about that. And he goes, you're going to have to give her the Mercedes. And he goes, man, that's paid off. And he goes, she knows where all the money is and stuff. She goes, if she speaks up, you could actually end up in jail. All right, I get you. Let's just do it. I just want to get out of this and I'll make money back. She gets damn near everything. He goes, man, he goes, I can't believe how little I end up with. The divorce becomes final. A week later, his best friend and lawyer marries his wife. Took him for everything. He's now living in his house, driving his Mercedes, doing his wife, sleeping in his bed. And Jamie is like, can you believe that shit? He goes, Lorraine got me. She got me. He goes, I'm so proud of her. He goes, he's amazing.
Hustler.
He goes, all these years, she was paying attention. He goes, what do I say? I mean, you got to admire,
Yeah.
the way it
the
went
pupil
down.
becomes a teacher.
Yeah.
All right. So what about Stephane Patry?
Another guy that, I think when he was first getting started, he and I kind of hit it off. I met him in California at one of those. It might have been like a Neutral Ground show. There's an old show, huh?
Oh yeah.
And it was, I can't remember who was there. I remember Strasser fought and a couple others. It was so cold that a lot of people, there were tournaments and they wouldn't even come out for the finals because it was so cold. It was up in the mountains. And that's when Jeremy fought Marsh. And Stephane was one of the judges, and they'd have the weirdest judging system you've ever seen, like a point for everything, a point for striking, a point for kicking, a point for ground, a point for, and it had all the different things. What it didn't do, it didn't weight anything. So if that fight took, I'd say out of 15 minutes, 12 minutes took place on the ground with Marsh on top, winning the round. There was one kick thrown in the entire fight, and that was Jeremy kicking him in the face in the third round. So he gets a point for kicks because he was 1-0. Marsh gets a point for ground, but he's got 13 minutes of control. And so the way they broke it down was Jeremy ends up winning that. Now that's one of the fights that, as soon as that got done, I tell Jeremy, we need to get the hell out of here. We need to, run, not walk, let's run, get out of here. And cause I was, Stephane was explaining it we were on a bus going back from the mountains. He was one of the judges and was explaining it to us. And at that point we kind of exchanged numbers and stuff. He said he had shows going on in Canada and he was just starting out. And I had a lot of good guys that I couldn't get fights for. So I started sending guys up there. I mean, lots of good guys. And stuff.
Eventually you had guys like on the Stephane Patry like payment plan where you get like $500 a month for your fight 3 months ago,
Well, I mean, I had guys that like I had Jermaine Andre and CJ Fernandez, very tough guys.
Both very tough.
But no one wanted to fight them around where they were, and so I sent them up there, and they got robbed, I mean, Jermaine was just horrible. They went through, this was, I mean, when the commission just started, we went through a half an hour listening to what a 10-point must system is and how the points work. And then at the end, they just announce him as the winner, no scores. And so I go over to the commission. I go, I just like to see the score sheets. And she goes, oh, we don't have those. And I go, oh, you just take the local guy and say he wins. And she goes, no, we don't do that. And I go, then how did you score it? I go, we just went through a half an hour of a 10-point must system. Where's the 10-point must system? And she goes, well, at the end of the fight, we asked the judges, who do you think won? I go, so at the end of the fight, you asked the 3 Canadian judges how you think your Canadian fighter did. I go, that's what happens. Oh, that is insulting, blah, blah, but that's how it started. And I go to Stephane. He goes, I know. He goes, we had a whole agreement on how it was going to be done, and they just decided not to do it.
That's nuts.
But that was, but they did give us a lot of fights, and he came through some of the time on the stuff, a lot of canceled shows, he never didn't pay me. That wasn't ever an issue. If a fighter went up and fought, he got paid. Maybe not that night. I mean, it could take a little bit, a month.
Hey, as long as they get paid,
but they got paid. What got me crazy was when we would schedule shows, and so I wouldn't take other fights because we're scheduled, and then that would fall through, and then and pretty soon my guys are left hanging, and it was hard to, it was hard to count on them for stuff.
What about
as a person? I spent a lot of time with him. I thought he was pretty funny. I like him.
What about Cory Fischer?
Have not worked a lot with Cory. I know him. Got nothing. I have nothing bad to say about him. We had a mutual enemy in Birmingham, Alabama, and he was putting on a show down there. And Cory calls me and he goes, "Hey, this, the jerk is putting on a show. How much money would you contribute to put a show on for free right across the street from it?" And I said, "I hate that guy. I'd do 10 grand. He goes, "I'll do 10 also." So we put on a free show for 20 grand, and he ended up having to shut down. And it was just worth it to do something. He was a bad guy and stuff. But that's really the only.
He was always good to me too. I mean, I can't.
I'm trying to think who did he do Mushin?
No, he was with King of the Cage.
Yeah, but he also
and he did Mushin. Yes, he
did Mushin. And
yes.
I had Sylvia fighting Pujanowski.
Yes.
And that one, and that was, I mean, again, we got paid, everything was good. So
he sells hair transplants now.
Oh, yeah, you would know that.
We're all looking. We're all looking. Hey, you mentioned Tim Sylvia. How'd that? Were you involved with Tim Sylvia's debacle with Ray Mercer?
Well, it was on my show.
Oh,
it was his show.
Yeah, I didn't. I'm sorry. Well,
slightly.
Fine establishments.
Look, here's the deal with that. This is a funny thing. I still got a story. If you look up Monte Cox, one of the things that comes up, other than I'm a felon, is that I ruined Tim Sylvia's career, and how I did it by some douchebag from Bloody Elbow, and the way I ruined it was I took him out of the UFC and put him in Affliction. He lost to Fedor and then kind of just faded away.
He did more in that fight against Fedor than he did in his entire UFC contract.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. 20% of that's good too.
Yeah.
So, but the real deal is Tim had one fight left on his UFC contract. He's getting paid 100 and 100. Joe calls me and he says, "We're not going to renew it. We're going to put him on an undercard. He'll beat somebody. We'll pay him the 200 and let him go." And I go, what about just, let's just let the contract end. We'll say it's over. Don't announce he's released because that kind of, diminishes his value. Let's just agree to not do the last fight and you say 200 and I walk away with an undamaged guy. So Joe got with Dana. They go, "Yep, we'll do it." So I get the okay. I get the letter that says it's okay. That same day, I call Affliction and I get a fight with Fedor for 800,000 plus 200,000 to win. The guy, there was no staying with the UFC. That's what happens when people write stories and don't call anybody involved to get the information.
Yeah.
And but he
It's
was
armchair journalism. That's
being released. So I put it down as one of the best moves I've ever made. I just got the guy $800,000.
He must got him $1 million
on his way out.
Yeah,
you got paid just a little less on your percentage than he would have made for his full UFC fight.
Exactly.
So
good day.
Yeah.
And also on that card, I had Terry Martin made 50,000 to fight somebody, and then Whitehead got paid 150,000 to fight Babalu, and Rothwell got paid 250,000 to fight Arlovsky.
Money.
All right,
Now,
so-
is there any reason why they went out of business in 2 fights?
Well, now you're sounding like Ken Pavia. Pavia told Rothwell, he goes, "Your manager ruined Affliction," and Rothwell goes, "How?" He goes, "By getting you guys too much money." And
you did.
Rothwell
That's what
goes,
you're supposed to do.
Isn't that what I'm supposed
That's what
to do?
you did a great job. That's Affliction's problem.
So
it was true. I mean, we made over $1 million on that thing. We went
That's
over
not your problem. That's what you're supposed to. That's what you're paid to do.
So Monty, was it like Steve Berry or Dave Berry from Affliction that was one of the big owners?
The big owner that I dealt with is the one that died.
Yes, Berry was his last name.
Yeah, but I can't remember his first name. It didn't. Neither of those sound right.
Okay.
He was he was a fan, very much a fan, and so he had an unrealistic. Well, he believed that because of Affliction and because they were, you go to the mall and you'd see a big display in an Affliction store. I mean, they did some good shit. Oh, and really, they drew their buys. I can't remember what their buys were, but they blew away every other pay-per-view other than the UFC in MMA. I mean, they were pretty good for a normal show. They just couldn't. They just went out and spent like $3 million on. I mean, there's a limit to what you can spend on a fight card. They just kept going. I don't know what Fedor got, but if my guy got almost $1 million to be fed to him, I'm sure he got 1.5. Or 2.
Well, we had Tom Atencio on, and
I like Tom actually.
What? So do we. He, he had a short run in the sport, but it certainly, made an impact. What about the old school name Phyllis Lee? Does she ring a bell?
This is Chris and I will probably differ on this. My thing with Phyllis. She's the reason that I started managing. She really is. And I don't want to say anything super bad or anything like that. She's gone. They always said, if you don't have anything good to say, so I didn't say anything. I was putting on shows. Jason Gotze is my best example. I'm putting on shows. I get him 3 wins in a row on my show. He's got talent. And then the next thing I know, Phyllis swoops in and sends him to Brazil, and he comes back and he didn't even really want to fight anymore. He gets hammered. And then she was doing it with other guys, sending him to Japan. I mean, she was sending guys to be beaten, to lose. And I didn't understand that at the time, and I didn't want to manage. I was having more fun promoting, didn't want to manage. And then after I had Pat, he was my only guy, and I didn't take money from him. And then I saw this happening. And I go, you know what? I'm going to start managing guys. I'm going to start doing it. I'll take care of them. And that was why I did it. My favorite story with her was I did a show at Market Square Arena in Indianapolis.
Well, I was there.
Yep, I know you were. And when the show was over, Matt Hughes fought. Look at that card. I mean,
great card.
We were putting on shows that were amazing. It really were. I mean, all the guys that went on to be stars. But Matt Hughes, they were in the locker room, and Phyllis comes in and shakes his hand and says, nice fight, Matt. And he goes, oh, thanks. And she turns and starts walking away. And Matt goes, Mrs. Lee, he goes, when you shook my hand, you put your business card in it, and it says, call me. He goes, you know I have a manager, right? Mrs. Lee, have you met Monty? And she's going, no, I didn't. And she's walking away. And he's like, you want to talk to my manager about it? And that's the kind of shit that I didn't like, although that was funny as hell. Matt was, well, Mrs. Lee.
So Monty, are you saying that somebody that kind of grew up in the carnival circuit as a female pro wrestler was a little rough around the edges? Is that what you're saying, Monty?
Well, I will say this. I don't know all of Phyllis's background. I don't know. I'm sure she
was a carny.
There are great qualities that I've missed because I don't know her that well. But what I saw in MMA was just, saying, and I can't, gosh dang it. Chris, was that you down by St. Louis when
it was Randy Greenman's
show where you said, I can't remember if it was you or it was another one of this. You fought on Madden shows, right?
Yeah.
There was a time, and I was there, where if it was you, I think I saw you say to Madden, hey, I love fighting your shows and all this. but am I ever going to make more than 3,000 or something like that? And he said, well, you made 5 for this. And then Phyllis goes, no, he didn't. No, he didn't. I got to talk to you. I got to talk to you. And drug him off in another room.
Oh,
and
we figured out what was
really
going on.
But was that?
I believe, yeah, me and Adam Steebly were fighting over it there. But I learned real quick, you know, how I got involved with her. You know, I was training very early 1998, and Jason Geitze was going over to Japan. I was like, I want to go to Japan. And that's when that we were talking about him. Anyway.
Brett Alazawi.
Yeah, and he came to train with us. He's like, man, I'm not, you know, Jason had him come train there, and I was beating him. And he was like, I'm not going there. You know, I'm getting beat by this guy who's nobody. So I was like, I'll go. And Phil's got me into Japan instead of him because I was beating him. So I didn't know anybody. I signed with Phil's because that was my only way to get Japan. Yeah. And I remember for the first probably 5 fights I went to Japan, she'd tell me this, like, Chris, you have to go. They're not going to give you a corner, man. They're not doing this. But I'm going to come out there. I'm going to come out there. They're sending me a ticket. I didn't figure out for a while. She was taking my corner man pass. I was just like, hold on a second. That's when I started figuring out with that and with the money. I mean, I was like, you know, 22, 23. I was just happy to be going there. And then I started figuring out she's kind of taking a lot of my assets. It took me a while, but there was no management back there, Monty. It was either it was her or you, and I was already connected with those people by that time. There was no. It is what it is.
That's why what I didn't like, and I know she'd also do things like she'd come to she got 3 or 4 guys or something in a show, and she'd go, "Hey, Tap Out sent us all shirts. We're all getting to wear shirts." You know, and they gave her $1,000 or something.
Nobody knew.
But she was just getting the shirts, and but
so
from what I was told, what she was doing with Madden, because I talked to him, and he had said that she would call and say, Chris needs 2,000 up front, or whatever it is, whatever the number is, and send it to me. And so she'd get the upfront money, and then she'd tell you you're making 3.
We never got any upfront money.
Well, I know.
So Chris,
did
you have to pay a percentage on that?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So she took the $2,000 and took a percentage of the 3.
And then took 20% of the 3. She made more than he did.
Yeah. I mean, we never knew that stuff back for a long time. You know what I mean? And by the time this kind of came out, it was like the UFC wouldn't deal with her. I mean, we just kind of parted ways. It is what it is.
You know,
but I mean, that was new and green coming to the sport, huh?
I was just gonna say she was definitely like a person who like for example, Ron Waterman was her athlete for a long time as well. So like she popped up like in a weird place where she got guys to sign up for it, but then everybody that was with her was always pretty loyal to her too, you know. So I think she had her charm, you know.
I think what it was.
I'm sorry, Chris. I'll go ahead.
No, you're 100% true. But I think more than anything, I just think she got just some guys who were just loyal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, not necessarily her, but I mean, like, you know, when I was first starting off, it was a big deal for me to go over to Pancrase and fight. That was like lineage and legendary people. And I was just, you know, I was a new guy who was freaking like fighting Midwestern guys and beating everybody in the Midwest. So I was just honored to go there to fight, you know what I mean? And you know, she didn't know who I was, and her bringing me on to do that, I was kind of, you know, honored to be there. I was young and inexperienced, and there wasn't a ton of money in the sport back then, so I was happy to be doing stuff. And then once I figure everything out, then things kind of change. But I mean, starting off, you're just happy to be there.
And just to close out, like, you know, with Monty, you know, Jason Geitze was definitely a guy that you could say, look, a heavyweight, that time, a high skill level guy, you know, a guy who was definitely a cerebral fighter and stuff like that. You got something you can work with. I was at that fight in Brazil. And yeah, the thing about Brazil at that time with the headbutts and no gloves and stuff like that, kind of the wrong place for a guy with Geitze's mentality. A manager should know that. Not a lot of Monty guys went to Brazil, but Brazil was a proving ground that way.
I wasn't sending anybody.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's you can't just take an American fighter doing MMA, even in 1997, and go to Brazil. There were certain guys that might fit in, but man, you know, Eugene Jackson had a rough time. It was just more.
Oh, I remember when they put that netting at the bottom, and guys would get caught in the netting. And they're just getting crushed in there, and there's blood. never seen so much blood. And I'm like, I'm not sending my guys to something like that. I like my guys. I mean, I didn't have friends. I had fighters. They were my friends. I mean, they were the guys I hung out with. I'm not going to say Jen's. You know, when my guys lost, I mean, it hurt. I was tight with them. I was still tight with almost all of them. You know, because we had a common goal.
Yeah.
Make me rich.
So, Monty, real quick. You know, obviously, present company excluded. But was there anybody from? I mean, how did guys? Did you go out and recruit guys, or they always come to you usually?
Well, when it first started, I was taking, you know, the Extreme Challenge. I was taking it around the country.
Yeah.
I mean, I was going to probably 7 or 8, 9 different states, and you know, I'd go to, and I was putting on a lot of amateur fights, looking at guys, and that was my main reason. I made money on the shows, but really it was just scouting. And so I found Sean Shirk in an amateur show in Clinton. I found Rich Franklin and Kerry Schall in a show in Ohio. There was an amateur. Rich was an amateur. You know, that's
Rich
how
Franklin
I did it. In my own shows, I would find people, and then I did have. I gotta say, I mean, I had a pretty good eye for what guys could be, and I'd say if you take what you have now and you come to the Quad Cities, you know, you're going to become something. And so when I didn't do contracts, I did handshakes, and I didn't want to do contracts because I told myself managing's hard. It's hard. It's a lot of work, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of disappointments. And I don't want to do all that work for someone that doesn't want me to do it.
Yeah.
So I've never had a person call me and say, I want out of our deal that I didn't say go. It just, well, that's a lie. I did it to Robbie. I said, you can go, but you're going to pay me.
Well,
I did too much for him. So
was there anybody in there that you can think of that you kind of passed on that you later on wish, man, I kind of wish I'd have grabbed that guy? I mean, was anybody that you saw he didn't? I mean, your eye didn't catch your eye that turned out to be something you can think of?
Boy, you know, I pretty much had my pick of. I mean, if guys were not signed with someone else, there was that time where I pretty much could have pretty much anybody. I mean, not a bragging thing. It's just that people saw that was your way to get somewhere.
Yeah.
And my thing was, I told myself first I would not do more than 30 people. Then I said I will not do more than 40 people. Then I said I will not do more than 50 people. I'm like, God damn it, 50's enough. I can't. But you have these guys calling with not sob stories, but they have these dreams and stuff. And I'm a sucker for that stuff. And who in the business at that time didn't have a story that, you know, that this is, they don't do this, they don't know what they're gonna do. But at 50, I had to just say, done. I'm done at 50. And so I kind of just stopped. I didn't even look for people. And then you got guys like Jeremy, greedy bastard, stays in the business for 25 years. I mean, he took 4 people's spot, you know,
Unreal.
because he wouldn't quit.
So selfish.
So selfish. You know, I'm still managing Jeremy, still booking him. And
wow.
I started managing him 25 years ago.
Wow.
Is there anybody that's been in it 25 years still fighting?
That's the only thing I've ever heard of.
Yeah, there can really only be, you know, a handful, really.
The lizard person.
Yeah, he's never bleeds. I bleed every fight. Hell, just going to work, I think I probably kept my face.
All right, so speaking of Jeremy Horn, I think, Monty, you've been around every imaginable block in the sport of MMA. We've also, I mean, everybody in this room has seen a fake fight or two. So Jeremy actually was the referee.
There are fake fights.
Pardon me?
There are fake fights.
Exactly. From what I understand. If I had to pick one where Jeremy Horn was the referee, I'm going Brad Kohler versus Dan Severn.
Or you could go Brad Kohler versus someone else or Brad Kohler versus someone else.
He's my favorite promoter, man.
There is a common denominator, you know, but I think the giveaway for me is when Brad gets a guy's shoes under his armpits and spins him in a circle and then throws him. That's always kind of a giveaway to me, that I don't think that's an easy move to make if you don't want to get caught.
A tough one. We go over that all the time in my gym. It's hard to get though. Very rare.
Yeah, those are tough. And the one down in Ohio with Severn and Kohler was not meant to be a work. I promoted pretty heavily that Severn was going to be there and be the main event. He was a pretty big name then. It was still back when he was fighting, you know, and something, I'm trying to remember the circumstances. Something happened. He came to me and he wasn't going to be able to fight. It was something like that. I think I'm right. Something happened. And they approached me about doing a fake fight. At that point, I'd never done one. Seriously, never done one. And I thought,
you still haven't.
Huh? Yeah, and I still haven't. And so I don't know. I was like, I felt like I was caught. Like, what are you gonna do? And they both convinced me, we will make this look real. No one will know. I go, I don't want anyone to know. I'm not telling Jeremy, the ref. I'm nobody. I don't even know about this. And so they go out and it's a pretty good fake. It's pretty good. And you will have people, I saw it online. You have people saying I was ringside and I guarantee that was real. I mean, and there were just as many as people going, I don't know. But in the beginning, Jeremy's just reffing. Everything's fine. He's watching. And then there's some ridiculous move where like Kohler shoots in, picks up Severn and body slams him. And right then you see Jeremy go. And then he starts looking for me. Like, giving me the eye. And so I'm like this.
I'm telling.
I can't look at him. And then it goes on, and then pretty soon they go over the ropes and land on the table, and then on the cement. I mean, holy shit! And Severn gets back in the ring, and they count Brad out, and that's how the fight ends. And I mean, we got so much praise for how good that show was and how incredible the thing was. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, everybody bought it. I mean, there were 10 goods to every one bad. And both of them have done a lot of pro wrestling. So, but normally we're not, our fighters are not actors. The more you ask them to act, it's almost like we've all been told, Chris, you've been told, go out there and carry this guy a little bit. Or don't
get some work in.
Don't finish him in the first minute.
Yeah.
That's nothing wrong with that. No. We would tell guys, I'd say, Matt, no takedowns in this fight. Work on your jab, work on your striking. You got to get better. You're better. You're so much better than the guy. Learn something from it. And so we would do that. And we would send Jeremy out. We would give him nothing but elbows. That's all he could throw for the whole first round. Second round, God. He goes, come on, this is ridiculous. Matt and I, what do we give him? Kicks? No kicks. We'll let you throw knees. He's so mad. And he'd go out and he tight clinched him, boom, kneed him in the face and knocked him out. And then like points at us, like, gotcha. We handicap guys because if not, there'd be 30-second fights.
Yeah. You did that a lot. I remember one time with Horn in New Jersey when we were doing the shows with Vlad. He was like, I matched him against a Japanese guy who came in way undersized. Like I hadn't seen him before, and Jeremy was such a pro at that point. Jeremy was like, this ends with a body shot. He called the body shot, and he ended it with a body shot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Manny, speaking of fellow Minnesotans that like to do fake fights, were you at the Mike Riley versus Jason Sprago fight where he won by the Boston Crab?
No, I never went to a Riley fight, actually. I just didn't have any reason. The only time I had someone there, Spencer Fisher's wife fought, who's the really big girl there, red hair. She was a heavy, really.
She was super tough.
Yeah, I can't think of her name off the top of my head, but they fought, and I mean, Spencer's wife is like half the size, and that was at Raleigh, and I almost went to that, but I didn't go to any of his shows. Yeah,
Manny, to be honest with you, I kind of knew that answer, but I just wanted to kind of like wedge in there that he did a fake fight. So
he did.
I got a question for you. Are you able to talk about Spencer? Like how
I think
Spencer,
so.
like health wise, because I know that's been something that maybe the UFC's been criticized for, maybe not, being vocal enough or not being kind of give me your take on that. Cause I know Spencer sometimes has had a hard time.
Yeah. I think he had some wars. I mean, his fights with Stout were just unbelievable. So much damage to both guys. And Spencer was the kind of guy that, I mean, he's North Carolina to the core. He'll fight anybody, anything. He just didn't have any fear. And I remember after the first two fights with Stout, they wanted a third. And, he told me, he goes, Monty, he goes, honestly, I don't know if I'm ready for that. He goes, that last one, he goes, I pissed blood for 2 weeks because I couldn't get out of bed. He goes, and he goes, Stout and I, we kind of talk now after doing this, and we kind of struck up a friendship. And he said he had the same thing. He goes, we're killing ourselves out there for peanuts.
Peanuts, yeah.
He's right.
And so they didn't want to do it. And I think he did a third fight with him, but I believe that, but that was after he got a new manager. I didn't want to do it for that. But from what I've heard and stuff, and they moved back to
North Carolina.
And Emily was pregnant. I don't think she's had the baby yet, but no, yeah, I'm sure she has. And he was having some dementia problems, some stuff. I mean, I know he would tell me that he couldn't find his car keys, and then they'd be in the refrigerator. Oh. And he said he'd drive and he'd pull off the side of the road and have just no idea where he's going or why. So I don't think he's allowed to drive now and stuff. So no, he was having some real issues, with the thing. And I think we'll see more of that as, guys taking a lot of shots, And I gotta say, back then, we didn't train smart. Guys didn't train smart. I mean, the Miletich sparring nights were legendary. I mean, you got people, 20 UFC guys in the house knocking the shit out of each other. And it was routine that guys would get knocked out and dropped and then go on to, we didn't know how to treat that. We treat it by saying, you going to get up or what?
Get tougher. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember a guy came to visit. He was supposed to be a tough guy, and they paired him up with Drew McFedries, and Drew McFedries damn near killed him. And the guy is literally crawling off the mat, crawling on his hands and knees. And Matt Hughes goes, hey, the hell you doing? He goes, I don't know how it is where you come from, but here we finished the round. He goes, so either you get up and finish the round or just keep crawling right outside of the gym and don't come back. And the guy got up and went back and got some more Drew.
Man. Well, I can tell this is where it kind of helps sometimes being the big fish in a smaller pond right there. I being a firefighter in Indianapolis, I never was able to go out for a camp or anything. So all my camps were done there, and we had decent guys, but we didn't have killers in there that I was going with. I mean, luckily for me, I was more like the focal point. Like, you're in there for 8 rounds straight, and new guys are going to come in every 2 minutes. But they weren't at that level where they were knocking me out ever. So maybe that's why I have really never had much head damage. I mean, I think I probably had one concussion I can ever think of.
I was going to say, maybe that's why you can now speak.
Exactly. You know what I mean?
So, Matty, another old school name, Sean Tompkins.
Yeah, I like Sean. He's a good guy. Met, he brought guys down. We were at TKO together a lot, and then he became good friends with Jeff Curran, and Jeff Curran and I were putting on XFO, and along with Dan Lardy, and we would bring Canadians in because of that connection. So got to know him pretty well and stuff like that. Once he became somewhat famous and stuff like that, I wasn't around him anymore. He was, we didn't do the XFO anymore and that kind of stuff. But I heard he got into some drug issues and things like that. And of course, then he died.
He was able to develop talent like very few people. Like a lot of guys poach people as coaches. What he did for Canada, I don't think Canada has really recovered since he lost, because of what he was taking guys from their first fight all the way to the UFC. And in the UFC, those guys were still like, no. This is the man right here. I was always very impressed with Sean and his abilities.
But as much as Sean did that, I gotta say, Stephane did the same as far as putting MMA in Canada on the map with his shows. And he was smart. He would bring guys over from other countries and stuff for his guys to get a name off of and develop. And he did a great job. Look at all the guys from Oiseau to to St. Pierre to he had tough guys. And he developed them really well. He did a great job with them.
I agree. All right, so this is the portion we're going to start throwing names at you guys.
Well, I want to throw one more story, because obviously we've been talking to Monty a little while, and you get to hear him talk about Jens, and part of it is he's a real person. He's got a personal relationship with these guys, and you also mentioned Sean Tompkins. A couple other guys reminded me of another guy we lost was Justin Eilers. Why don't you talk about Justin, because this is a guy I know very close to your heart.
I'm going to start crying.
I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that to you, though.
Yeah, let's not.
Yeah, okay. That's cool. We can edit. No problem. No problem at all. I'm so sorry. I didn't. I'm sorry.
So, Monty, you've been around a lot of blocks. It's always kind of strange to see where people end up. And are you shocked to see Rich Franklin doing such a good job over at ONE FC?
Oh, well, no, he's a super good guy, a really good guy. And they gave him a position to succeed. He's actually, I probably shouldn't get into that, but they gave him a job where he would take incoming fighters that they wanted to sign and ask him, what do you like to do? You like to scuba dive? Then he'd take him scuba diving. He got his master's scuba diving thing. So he's scuba diving in Bali, and guys you want to skydive? We'll skydive. And then they filmed it for these videos he was doing. And then he traveled around and opened up new doors. He was like the ambassador, and then he started running his own show, with beginners that then went on to ONE. They gave him everything. The only thing is he's an American, and it's tough to live in Singapore. And he misses being back here and being around, everybody and stuff like that. He's kind of stuck out, by himself. So I don't know how long that'll keep going, but whatever he does, he'll be successful at. He put money away. He's one of the real success stories. And, I'm just glad. I just talked to him 3 or 4 days ago. He just got back to Singapore. I was going to try to get down to, we were going to reunite Kerry Shaw and him and I just couldn't get out of here. And with all the COVID stuff, I just couldn't swing it.
It's funny. It's funny you mentioned. I remember back when we ran the Evansville shows, that Rich and Kerry would hop. Yeah, my shows, especially with my stuff, we didn't have a lot of big guys, right? So they would come over like and sit in the audience, like soliciting, like, please get us a fight next show. And I could never make it happen just because I was like, who the, I can't put someone. Yeah. When Steibling came along, I kind of started thinking, maybe Steibling, but Steibling was a little small for Rich at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. Rich was so in such great shape. I mean, he was a guy that he'd measure, he goes, time for lunch. I mean, I'm like, where are we going? And he'd break out containers of broccoli. And I go, what? I thought we were going to lunch. No, he goes, I need 6 ounces of broccoli, 2 ounces of beef, 3. I go, that's not lunch. I go, if food doesn't have a drive-through, it's not lunch. This is horrible.
Rabbit food.
And that's how he was. He goes, meals to me are not a pleasurable thing. They're something I have to do to keep my body this way. And I said, I am exactly the opposite. Meals to me are everything. I wake up thinking, what am I going to have for lunch? So, but yeah, he was a good guy to be around. And we used to go play golf at the Dave and Buster's, and he and I got there early with Kerry coming in. And on those machines, you can boost, you sign up and you can put a boost on. So if you hit a ball 200 yards, it'll add 100 yards. And then we can take it and you can cut it down to where if you hit it 100, it goes 40. So we did that to Kerry. Oh, we were bawling. It was so funny. Kerry would get so mad. He would crush it and it'd go 20 yards. And we go, wow. Big muscle man hitting the ball 20 yards. And then we go, I think I can 320. He goes, what the hell? He goes, we went about 6 holes before we had to tell him. We couldn't stop laughing. It was just too funny. We had a lot of funny stuff with those guys.
Kerry's always, he was always a laugh a minute.
Well, he's so easy to get along with, like he's one of those guys you immediately like him, He's just that type. All right. So
I can tell a story that's a little risque if you want about Kerry. That's kind of
funny. Take it.
Bring it on.
Kerry was a guy, if you went to the strip club, if you got a lap dance, he'd wet his pants. It just took one. You never give Kerry 2 lap dances. One was all it took. And so we were all out after a show one time, and Kerry did all that, and we're headed back to his apartment. Me, Schnocky, and Kerry. We were staying there, and Kerry's carrying stuff, and Schnocky goes, "Hey, the door's locked." He goes, "My keys in my right pocket," and he reaches in the pocket, and he goes, "What the?" He pulls his hand, and he goes, "What the?" He goes, "Oh, my bad. I spooged it." My pocket.
Oh man.
And Schnocky's like,
thank you. It's closer than he wanted to be to Kerry Schall, I guess.
Yeah.
We were sitting outside of a Golden Corral, and Kerry will do anything for money. And
fight Fedor.
So he's starting to get sick. He keeps acting like he's going to get sick, and I go, God damn it, Kerry, if you're going to throw up, just throw up. I go, you're driving me crazy. I can't eat. And so he puts a finger down and he throws up, he fills a glass up. And I reach in my pocket, $20. I go, $20 if you drink it. And he goes, you'll give me $20 to drink that? It's right there. There's 8 of us at the table. And he starts downing it. And everyone is like that. And then he runs outside around the windows right there, and he's just throwing up in the bushes and stuff. But he would do anything for $20, And
a laugh. Yeah.
One last one. He's riding with Rich, and Rich Clementi is sitting behind him, and they're talking. They're going to a show, something, and Kerry goes, well, he goes to Clementi. He goes, Meat Truck says, well, your wife, she's a nurse. He goes, she's banging a doctor right now. And he goes, it was his girlfriend, his fiance. He goes, shut up, Kerry. He goes, that's my fiance. That's not funny. He goes, oh, doctor, that's the first time I've ever seen one that big. You know, he's like, Kerry, I'm telling you, cut it out. And Kerry doesn't ever stop. So Rich, with the headrest, goes around, gets a rear naked on him with the headrest in. He can't touch him, and he chokes him unconscious. So Kerry's just there. He wakes up and he goes, oh. He goes, I peed myself. He goes, no, I am peeing myself. I can't stop. He's pissing all over himself. And Clementi's like, yeah, my wife and the doctor. He goes, I warned you. That was Kerry. I mean, he was just so funny. And you just never knew what he was going to do.
Good dude. All right, so we like to play a game where we throw a name at you, and it's either asshole, yes or no. So, you know, if you got a little something you want to throw in about the person, you can. So we usually do like a round robin. I'm going to start with Bobby Hoffman.
He was an asshole.
Dana White.
He's an asshole.
We got two.
Mike Camp.
Oh, I like Mike.
Okay.
He's a good guy.
All right, what about Ken Pavia? That's a gimme. All right.
He's a midget.
Okay, what about Shannon Rich?
I like Shannon.
Okay.
He's fought for me a few times. Always been. He actually upset a guy in Minnesota, that Guff Miller, that was like 7-1. He actually beat him with an armbar in a minute.
Yeah, I was there for that.
Oh,
Melvin Gillard fought on that card.
Wasn't that something? I mean, who would have expected that? But Shannon back then would come out and fight hard for 2 or 3 minutes, and when he realized it wasn't going to happen, then somehow it ended. You know?
Yeah, I was winning just until the point where I realized I was in a fight.
Yeah.
No, until the other guy realized it.
Yeah.
How about I think we can maybe get a little story about some Russian ostentatiousness. Vadim Finkelstein.
You know, he was a clever guy with that took a lot of chances. You know, I mean, I always thought Fedor would end up killing him. I really did, because you know, Fedor, all the money Fedor made, he handed it over to Vadim, and Vadim invested it and stuff for him. He trusted him 100%. And I got a feeling I don't think he'd still be fighting if all that money was still there. That's my guess. But I got along with him fine, except you know, my exit with those guys was the M1 challenge that they wanted to do, and what he presented me as CEO of the company. Then it was a loser. I just didn't see any way it was going to make money, and I advised my New York side not to do it, and I made them very angry. All those guys, Oppie and all those guys that were on the other side, and those guys weren't playing. They don't play. So I you know, my wife wouldn't let me go to Russia. You know, they keep sending me one-way tickets. Why would they do that?
Well, did you get to do any partying in Russia? I know there's a story in there somewhere.
You know, I only went twice. And I would make them meet me in Amsterdam, because it was kind of.
I would always do that.
Yeah, I'm the last guy you want to send to Amsterdam. I mean, you know, all the stuff there, and I don't do anything. So
yeah, no, I know.
But trying to what's funny happened in Russia. The one thing, I took Jeff Munson over there, you know, and first time we're walking around. And we're in Red Square, we're everywhere. And I mean, his neck is moving like he's at a tennis match. I mean, it's hot girl.
He was in heaven.
Hot girl. There's a hot girl. And he's like, you know, and it's mind boggling. And all of a sudden he just stops and screams. He goes, ah, like that. And he goes, am I being punked? He goes, is someone punking me? Is there a camera? He goes, there can't be this many good looking girls. And then we met with some of the very wealthy guys in Russia and the stars of Russia, and they get the 1% of the 1%. I mean, their people are their girlfriends, who are all between 20 and 24, were, you know, beautiful models and stuff like that, you know. But I only went there the 2 times. Once the first time I went, I went because I told my wife they wouldn't kill me because Munson was fighting a month later. We were just going for the press conference. You wouldn't kill me in the press conference. So I go over and I get picked up in a big black car with a bent-nosed guy. No offense, Chris. Bent-nosed guy.
Good.
that looks like a mobster and doesn't speak English. And I get in the back and he starts driving me. And we're driving into the middle of nowhere. And we go into this like industrial area. I'm scared. I mean, I think I'm telling myself, for a smart guy, you sure got yourself, in trouble here. And so I'm looking around. If I jump, where can I run to? And then I'm like, I can't run. First off, I can only run about 10 steps. That's not going to get out of the range of an M16. So I shouldn't run. Well, as we're going down an alley, a big metal fence opens up and two guys with machine guns step out. I'm not feeling good. I mean, I really think something's wrong. And then we turn in there and it's Vadim's hideaway, like a $17 million hideaway. It's got his mansion. He's got a guest house that has 4 bedrooms. He's got a house for the guards. I mean, this thing is amazing. He saw a Turkish bath place in Turkey and brought it over and had it input. And he's got everything. So I stayed there and that went okay. But we had the big TV coming for Munson and he's nowhere to be found. They're yelling at me. There's no, we got TV, everyone here. You're supposed to do the face-off with Fedor. Nowhere to be found. Munson's off making a side $1,000 doing a seminar. And he's getting paid $50,000 for the fight, but he's got to go get his $1,000, So there's video somewhere of me facing off with Fedor, and I'm pretty sure Fedor was scared. I could see it in his eye.
Makes sense.
But yeah, we had to do the whole fist like this, and I gave him my meanest look. But that was the troubles we always had with Munson. He never knew where he was. He's got a fight scheduled for big money, and 3 weeks before he tried to hide and fight somewhere else.
I think that's what happened with you, Miguel.
I'm sorry?
That's what happened with Miguel at one of his fights in Russia. Munson did the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. Munson was on the short list to fight Fedor for me. And I went with Linland, actually. It was kind of like a company choice. I know Munson was agreed to a lot less money, and I think I would have opted for that. But some people thought Munson was boring, so we went with Linland and stuff.
Well, Miguel, he didn't go show up for his airplane ticket when I went to Russia with you.
Yeah, there was one, but that wasn't he wasn't fighting Fedor. He was fighting Magomedov. And I found a replacement in Finland, but
that's what you ran into with him, and we knew it. You knew it. You couldn't trust him. He was making $2,500 when I got him the fight in Russia. I got him a 3-fight deal for $50,000 a fight, and then he burned me and wouldn't pay me my percentage and stuff from it. And he was mad at me because he had taken a fight in between those 3 that he wasn't allowed to, and they gave him a loss, and he thought they robbed him. And he was mad because I wouldn't call the commission in Poland or whatever and argue his loss for the fight he took against me that he wasn't supposed to do.
So I'm guessing he'd be on the asshole list, right?
Yeah, double asshole. He should stay. He should stay in Russia. I mean, I mean, it's amazing that what you can take a guy that's down and out fighting for $2,500, you make him $150,000 in a year, and they shit on you. It's like, really, dude? It's just So, but
Munson might be a regular on that list. We have Josh Barnett and Ken Pavia those are obvious regulars as well. I think Monson might have to stay there as well.
Yeah, he was not very loyal to say. And then I never knew who to fly. Do I fly his wife or his girlfriend? Who's going with you this time? You know, I got two passports. I got two numbers to call. I'm always going back and forth. Which one's going? He goes, the girlfriend this time. Okay, you know.
At least did he ever tell you to speak to his attorney, Dennis Hallman?
He told me one time, he said he was in the shower and he heard his wife answer his phone, and all he could hear was her say, well, I don't care who you say you are. I'm his wife and we have 3 kids and blah, blah. And he knows it's this girl he's seen in Florida. So he gets out of the shower and he goes, hey, did Hallman call? He was going to call and do a prank. And he goes, no, but a woman called. And he goes, oh, that's got to be his girlfriend. He goes, I'll talk to him. They're just trying to pull your leg. Then he goes over to Hallman and goes, dude, you got to bail me out. You got to tell her that your wife called and blah, blah. So they smooth it over, but she don't trust him. He's not supposed to go to Florida no more. Well, then he says, well, that's where I train and everything. So he's down in Florida. He's eating with the family, hanging out with the girl and everything. And at one point he gets a phone call and it's his wife. And she goes, listen, I know what's going on there with this girl. And, you know, I've had enough. And he goes, honey, he goes, okay. He goes, I admit it. He goes, but look, you know, it's just that she's so ugly. And I felt sorry for her and I was just trying to help her and blah, blah, blah.
Mercy bang.
Mercy bang. And he goes, I would never, he goes, she means nothing to me. And she goes, well, that's interesting. I have her father on the line with us. And he goes, hi, Jeff. Yeah, busted. No.
Yeah, no. Jeff was like, he fought for me one time in Brazil. He was the main event on a card also Aaron Riley fought on. And like he's in the ring celebrating the win, and he had brought his girlfriend there. And he grabs his girlfriend on the mic. He goes, I want everyone to meet my wife. And people, and like his team is like, no, you know, that's not your wife, dude. He really had no care. Another time with Hallman, he had been fighting in England, met some girl, and had her name tattooed on the back of his neck. Have you heard this story? He had her name tattooed. So he gets to the airport. His wife's there to pick him up. He calls Hallman. Hallman picks him up, takes him to a tattoo parlor, and now if you look at it, he's got a symbol of a guy like holding a gun up to the other guy's head. That's to cover a girl's name tattooed on the back of his head. So yeah, Munson's got problems, I think.
Yeah, he's
well, I like him.
Okay. My favorite Munson story, and this went all over the place. We would ask. Well, I can open this door.
He fought your guy with a fake dick.
The Wizinator?
Yeah.
My dog was caught inside. So I'm asking about Munson. I think I'm talking to someone from American Top Team, and they go, "Oh, you have no idea how crazy this guy is. The shit he does." And I go, well, "Give me an example." He goes, "All right." He goes, "Last weekend, he comes in. He's telling all the guys, oh, you know, I met this girl over the weekend. Blah blah. Did all this stuff." And he goes, "Well, how did you meet her?" He goes, "Great story." He goes, I'm in a bar and I see her sitting at the bar, and I go up and talk to her, and she says, "Hey, why don't we go back to my place and do the nasty?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'm into that." And she goes, "Well, that's my husband and he would like to watch." And he goes, "Well, I'm not into that." He goes, "But if he just watches." And she goes, "Yeah, he just wants to watch." He goes, so I go back to her place, and her husband sits in a chair, and he goes, I get her naked and I start doing oral. And he goes, all of a sudden, you know, she pops my head up and she goes, "Hey," she goes, "why don't you jack him off?" And he looks over and there's a guy her husband standing there with his pants down. And so they're going, "Oh God, oh my God, oh my God." You know, and they go, "So what happened?" He goes, "So anyway, so I'm jacking this guy off," and they go, "Well, what?" And they go, what? And he goes, I wasn't going to stop then. He goes, I hadn't done the girl or anything. So for like 2 months, everyone at the Miletich would just be sitting there and go, so I was jacking this guy off. That was our opening.
Oh my God.
Oh,
I've heard that one before. Yeah.
that's a real man right there. That's a real man.
I do have one more good one. I can say it. It's with Eilers now. I'm over the initial. That one kind of blindsided me.
I'm sorry, Monty. I love you.
Well,
man.
that's okay. It's getting so close to Christmas, and that's when he was murdered, and we were really close, and so. But anyway, we go out to Hawaii, and Eilers somehow gets oral from a girl that might not be a girl, and we're just
It happens.
we're just amazed.
Hey, we're not doctors
in
here.
Hawaii, it's a lot. Like, and I go, what the hell? And he goes, dude. He goes, you don't know. I don't know. I didn't check. She had good tits, and that's all I know. And he goes, from the waist, she was a chick from the waist up, and that's all anybody knows.
Good for him.
And so I would say, but that doesn't. If there's a even a small % chance, Justin, I go, that's just nasty. He goes, I don't know about that. I had a girl. I saw her tits. She's a chick from the waist up. So for the next year, everywhere we went, if we pulled off to a convenience store, I'd go up to the clerk and go, hey, when this guy comes out, ask him, if it's a chick from the waist up, does that make it all right? And she would. And he would go into Monty. He goes, look, and then he'd start explaining. I don't know. He don't know. No one checked. It was a chick from the waist, and do that. So he'd go have to get his eye test. I'd call ahead. When he shows up, ask him, it's a chick from the waist up. I mean, everywhere he went, I was on him. And so we get to the point, he gets in the UFC to fight Mike Kyle. And you know how Joe Silva sits down and does the interviews, and you got the guys around, and he does all of them. He goes, last thing, he goes, if it's a chick from the waist up, does that make it okay? And Jens and those guys fall on the ground. They're laughing so hard. And he's like going, are you kidding me? Oh, my God. And he called me. He goes, I'm on to you now. He goes, I'm on it. He goes, you will not catch me again. I'm on to your tricks. Well, he's fighting Andre Arlovski for the heavyweight championship out east. And Big John comes in, checks the gloves. Everything okay? You got the rules, everything. He goes, all right, man, good luck. He goes, oh, last thing, if it's a chick from the waist up, does that make it okay? and I'm standing right there, and I'm just kind of covering my mouth. And he has this look on his face of astonishment. It's like, and he looks at me, he goes, Monty, he goes, it's the heavyweight championship. He goes, come on, man.
Thought I'd loosen you up.
And that's incredible, man.
And so, I mean, it wasn't until we went out to his funeral and stuff, and I was standing there with Tony and Jens, and I looked over at Jens, and I go, the whole thing, it's over. He goes, what's over? I go, the chick from the waist up. I go, man, I had another year. I had another year to get it. Yeah. He took the easy way out. I was on him. But he that fight against Arlovski, I don't know if you remember, but I don't think a heavyweight's ever been beat up worse than he was in that fight. And he had his left hand was broken blocking a punch. It hit him perfect and broke his hand. He broke his right hand on the top of the head of Arlovski. Jesus. He had a brutal black eye, and then he got hit. And when he went to go down, his leg spun and he tore his ACL.
Yes.
And so he also somehow ended up spraining the other ankle. But when he came out of the hospital, both hands are wrapped, got this thing over his eye. He's got one leg up in the crutches, and he's actually walking on a sprained ankle. Is the only way he can get around.
Oh, that's horrible.
We show him no sympathy. It's like, God damn it, Justin, we got to get to the gate. Let's go. And we had a late night one, so you couldn't get the people to drive him. You had no choice. And we go in, I talk to him, I get him to be in first class, and where I was. I was always first class, and the fighters were in the back. But he sits down, and the people up there are just like staring at him. And he looks over at the other guy, and he goes, "You think this is bad? You should see the other guy." And they're all going, "Oh my God, what does the other guy look like?" And he goes, "Not a mark on him." Everybody starts laughing and stuff. And it was just him. He could make fun of himself. There was just so many good things about him. One more thing real quick. He's dating a girlfriend, a dancer, and she's got the car. And he's walking home in the snow, and he sees a convenience store. He's got about a mile more to walk. Sees a convenience store, and a guy's getting gas, and he puts the gas thing back and then goes inside the shop. This was just too much of a deal for him. So he sneaks over, jumps in the car, and takes off. And he said, all I can see in the rearview mirror is the guy coming out with groceries, just going, "Hey!" And so he takes off, and I go, what did you do with the car? He goes, I took it back in like 3 days. I go, 3 days. He goes, I had errands. He goes, I never had 2 cars before. He goes, that's nice. And I go, where'd you do with it? He goes, I took it over to a parking lot. I filled it up with gas, took it over to a parking lot, and called the cops and said, you might be looking for this car. It's over in this parking lot. Then Jen gets involved and goes, dude, I've already gotten 2 calls. He goes, they have cameras at that gas station. They know it's you. You're going to jail. And he's like, I didn't see any cameras. He goes, yeah, you should go check it out. So Eilers goes, and there's no cameras, and Eilers is looking around the corner and looking up. I mean, he's just got to look like a crazy man looking for cameras and stuff.
Putting the skies on.
But that was just, Justin was just so full of life, so fun. He did some stupid shit, but he's one of those guys, like if he's with you, he's absolutely hilarious. If he's not with you, what an asshole. What a jerk, what a loudmouth. But if he's with you, oh my God, you're not going to have a boring time with Justin Eilers.
That's awesome.
So I really miss that guy.
Well, I think we broke the 3-hour mark.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, hey,
we could keep talking, but yeah, I think we could maybe go for a range.
Yeah. We've poured our welcome out. I feel bad.
Sure. I love talking about the old days and stuff like that, and my Rams are winning, so it's not too bad. But,
well, hey, I really appreciate all your time. What a true legend of the sport. Like I said, I remember when I started fighting in 1998. You were it. You were not only put on fights, but you were really, there was only 2 management teams, and you were definitely, I knew back then you were the better of the 2 that I drew the short end of that straw over. But
I can remember a show in Wisconsin where Phyllis came walking in and goes up and hugs this kid, and she goes, oh, I can't remember the kid's name now, but it's like Sean, and we're like, that's Sean. Oh, Sean.
Yeah.
She had Ian Freeman when he was in the UFC in the beginning, and he was, I can't remember who he was fighting, but he had a really bad first round, and she came out of the stands. There weren't a lot of people back then, and goes to his corner and is screaming, "What are you doing? You're embarrassing me. What are you doing?" And Ian turned and looked at her, and she just, if looks could kill, and she just stops and turns and walked away. Ian was like, I was going to jump that rope and grab her by the fucking neck. He goes, can you believe that? And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty crazy shit. But then I started managing Ian.
There you go.
Yeah.
Who was a good guy.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. He's going
to like I said, you just did so much for the sport and everything. Just thank you for your time. Thank you for all you've done for everybody. And it's always great to hear from you a little bit and talk to you. So thank you for everything and appreciate your time.
All right,
thanks,
man.
Mike.
Yeah, definitely. When you look at the history of the sport, from the early days, no doubt one of the top 5 most influential people. The sport would not be where it is today without Monty. Thank you, man.
Absolutely.
Thanks. Hey, one quick one to part. I was with McCarthy, Elaine McCarthy, and my wife. Big John was doing something, and she's saying, when it's so nice shopping without John, because everybody, comes up to him, blah, blah, blah. And I go, hey, what am I, chopped liver? I go, I have people come up to me too. And she goes, well, but it's not the same. And 5 minutes later, these two people come up to me. Can I get an autograph? And I'm like, absolutely. Yeah. And I sign the thing. And as they're walking away, the one goes, who was that? And the other guy goes, Gary Schall.
Oh.
Whatever.
That's cool.
Man, you talk about just cutting you off at the ankles,
Yeah. Let me get that paper back. Let me re-sign it for you.
Check out the full interview on iTunes, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms.